What's up guys, how are you all? Today we will listen What If Naruto son of Kakashi. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments, and also check the description to support the original author for this beautiful creation. The night rang out with the desperate shouts of warriors locked in a hopeless battle. And the agonized screams of comrades dying. Above the leaf shinobi stood the nine-tailed fox. Its tail swishing about, smashing trees and making craters in the ground around it. Orders were being shouted out to the different units as the leaf desperately tried to keep the monster at bay. But the Kyuubi was proving to be far more than what any of them could deal with. Once more the huge fox raised his head and prepared to send another powerful sound blast straight at the village. The blast smashed through another part of the wall and careened into some close-by shops. The shops were instantly reduced to splintered wood and debris. Another blast took out a number of residents' homes. And what didn't become instant rubble burned and spread the flames of destruction to new areas, while the enraged fox continued to assault the village. In a brave and desperate attempt to stop the demon fox, some of the teams shot enormous fireballs at the demon while others threw kunai with paper bombs attached to them. Still others who knew how to create barriers made them several layers thick to try to at least slow down the attack's speed and strength. None of their efforts were making an impression. Kyuubi was getting deeper into the village with his hits without actually moving forward. Kakashi was running through the forest. He had learned that an intruder had infiltrated the leaf and had attacked his sensei's wife and baby. He wanted to help them. He didn't know if he could. He could sense Minato's sensei somewhere over to his right. This was in the same area where the fox was currently at. Kakashi deduced that the enemy had somehow managed to separate them and extract the nine tails from Kushina. Kakashi could sense Kushina's chakra just ahead of him. He didn't know what he would find when he got there. Kakashi continued leaping swiftly through the trees and trying to stay focused on Kushina's chakra. It was there, but it wasn't as strong as it would normally have been. Suddenly Kakashi sensed something else, and it was coming in his direction fast. He leapt out of the tree he was in and hit the ground hard, rolling tightly and coming up on his feet again. Then he leapt behind a huge boulder as a few trees torn practically from their roots was flying through the air and smashing several others. One of which was the very tree Kakashi had been in moments ago. Shaken a bit by the scene, Kakashi took a moment to pull himself together. He felt his sensei's chakra and it wasn't far from where he was now. Kakashi also felt the summons that his sensei called forth. Kakashi could just see the huge toad's head above what was left of the tree line. And there on top of the toad's head stood none other than Minato-sensei, the fourth Hokage. Kakashi watched his sensei in awe as the man stood tall and fearless against the demon fox. In the next instant Minato did a quick succession of hand signs, his chakra increasing dramatically as he did so. There appeared a great blue light, and then Minato, the huge toad, and the fox were gone. Kakashi stood still for only a few moments more, thinking, what was that? Before suddenly, he felt his sensei's chakra and that of the fox again, and this time it was located in the same area as Kushina and the baby. He quickly took to the trees again. Please let me get there in time, he thought as he raced against the wind. It only took 3 or 4 minutes to arrive at the scene, but it felt like hours to Kakashi. Once there he abruptly stopped and stared in horror at what he saw. In the clearing lay 2 figures on the ground. A small infant lying in the arms of his mother was crying. His father lay on his side embracing his little family. Kneeling just behind the fourth Hokage was the third Hokage. He was speaking softly to Minato. 3 Anbu wearing the bear, hawk, and cat masks were in a half-circle guarding the 4 on the ground. Candles that had been meticulously placed around them had burned out. But what caused Kakashi to stand in horror was the sight of blood. Lots of it on the ground and all around both his sensei and Kushina. It was pouring out of both of them, and the third was kneeling in it as he continued to speak to his dying successor. The fox was nowhere to be seen. And Kakashi was afraid of what that could possibly mean. He found the strength to walk towards them. A million thoughts running through his mind. But the most prominent one was the thought of losing the 2 most important people of his young life. Minato was more than the fourth Hokage or even as sensei to Kakashi. He was as a father to him. A father that more than made up for the one that had left him alone and angry. Kushina was a mother that Kakashi had never had before in his life. His birth mother had died in childbirth. So he never knew her, nor had he ever known a mother's love until he met Kushina. Together they had taught him the meaning of love and compassion. They had accepted Kakashi wholeheartedly into their lives, making him a member of their family. And now he was going to lose them both forever. The Anbu were watching Kakashi the moment they sensed him coming. But they remained in place instead of going to meet him and seeing what he was after. The third Hokage had not said anything about anyone else being permitted to be at the scene. So they watched and prepared to advance on Kakashi. The fourth Hokage saw Kakashi walking out from the trees. He immediately spoke to the Anbu and told them to allow Kakashi to come forward. The Anbu stood down and continued to stay on guard. The third looked up as well and smiled a weak smile at the approaching boy. Minato along with Kushina also smiled at Kakashi, and Minato raised himself up so that he was propped up with his right arm still lying on his side. While with his left hand he beckoned encouragingly to Kakashi to come to them. It pained him to have Kakashi see both himself and Kushina in this state. Kakashi had already seen his father dying on the floor of their home in a successful suicide attempt. Then it was Obito dying under a huge boulder. And finally it was Rin who died by leaping in front of an enemy Iwa ninja that Kakashi was about to strike down. Because Rin wanted to end her life so as to not be used by the Iwa ninja to attack the Hidden Leaf village. All the people that were precious to Kakashi, and now he would have to witness the death of Minato and Kushina. The very thought nearly brought tears in Minato's eyes, but he kept them at bay. No, now he needed to be strong for Kakashi. He needed Kakashi to do something that he knew would never be easy. So he would only ask the boy for this favor, this last request. If Kakashi said no, Minato would not hold it against him. And he would let him know this as well. He mentally prepared himself for what he was about to ask. Kakashi walked up to them slowly. Every part of him was aching to just run to them. But deep in his heart he knew that this was it. This was going to be goodbye, and Kakashi was afraid of this. He didn't want to be afraid. Hell, he had seen death so many times now. But it never hurt like it did when it was someone close to him that was dying. And why? Why did he always have to be there to witness their deaths? Why? Kakashi knew he had to pull himself together. There would be time later to sit alone and cry about the unfairness of it all. But right now he knew that his sensei had something he wanted to say to him, and maybe Kushina too. And Kakashi knew that he couldn't fall apart on them now. Whatever they wished of him, whatever they wanted him to do, he would do it for them. No matter what it was that they asked. He wouldn't deny them, for they were his last precious people, and he could not deny them anything. He came and kneeled down beside Kushina. His mask covered up so much of his face. But his one uncovered eye showed what facial expressions could not. The eye was filled with sorrow but also deep determination. Kushina reached out with one hand to caress the side of the boy's face. She was far too weak from blood loss to say anything now. She could barely even see him. But it was the look in his eye that held her gaze. She knew that Kakashi would not deny her husband's request. It was obvious to her. But a tear broke free and streamed down her face as she thought of how unfair it was to ask the child to do what they couldn't do themselves. But nothing could be done to stop this now. Fate had spoken. Minato looked at Kakashi and he gathered a breath, then he began to speak. Kakashi, son, I'm sorry that you have to see Kushina, and I like this. But I want you to know that we both love you and will always be by your side wherever you go through this life. I promise we will be there and guide you. At this, Kakashi's eye widened. He knew they loved him. He knew he was accepted of them. But still he never could quite get used to it. Kakashi struggled with acceptance. He always thought he was never worthy of anyone's love. Minato continued to speak. We have a request of you. It's selfish on our part. But we couldn't think of anyone else that we would rather take on this responsibility. You don't have to accept this request. Neither Kushina or myself will hold this against you ever. Here Minato sighed and swallowed the lump that was beginning to form in his throat. Then continued, Kushina and I would be honored if you would take Naruto and raise him as your own. There was silence for a moment as the couple along with the third waited for the request and what it implied to sink in. Kakashi's eye, which had gone down to normal size, was now wide again. What, me? But I don't know anything about raising a baby. What if I screw up? They will never forgive me if the baby died or something. Because I didn't know what to do. No, he thought calmly. I can do this for them. I will do this for them. They need me now, and so does Naruto. It isn't about just me anymore. Minato watched as a stream of emotions shot through the boy's eye. Shock, surprise, fear, doubt, and then determination and resolve. But before Kakashi could speak, Minato once again placed his hand up to stop Kakashi from speaking just yet. He had more he needed to say and time was running out. Kakashi, before you give me your answer, I want you to fully understand what this means. The tone was now serious as well as his look. And Kakashi nodded in acknowledgement for him to continue. I would love for the village to acknowledge our son as a hero. The Nine Tails has been successfully stopped because of Naruto. But neither I nor Kushina or the third are this naive. The village will most likely hate Naruto. And they will persecute him and treat him like trash. In their narrow-minded minds they will see Naruto as the demon and not his jailer. Kakashi closed his eye and lowered his head a bit. He understood persecution. He has been living with it for a long time. He knew of the glares. The hateful words that were bitterly and heatedly spoken against him. He knew of being separated from other people's company. He knew of the humiliation of being spit on and having people throw things at him. He also knew of the isolation that came with being labeled an outcast. Yes, he knew, but he would never let the villagers deter him. Kakashi moved on in life. Because of his few precious people. And he would make damn sure that Naruto would move on as well. He looked back up and with determination speaking through him. I understand, Sensei, and I promise you and Kushina right here and now that I will not falter and break. I will not leave Naruto without a precious person of his own. I accept the baby and the responsibility that comes with him. I will love and cherish him as my own. Minato and Kushina smiled at him. Kushina stroked Kakashi's face one last time, before she brought her hand back down and with her husband's help, lifted the baby up and offered Naruto to Kakashi. Kakashi reached out without hesitation or trembling and gently took the baby into his arms, being careful to support the baby's head as he brought the infant up against his chest. Naruto's crying had ended some time ago when Kakashi had arrived. Now the infant snuggled closer to Kakashi while a tiny yawn came from his mouth. The new person was warm and their breathing was smooth and even. Little Naruto felt safe now and soon fell asleep. Kushina looked at the two of them with tears streaming down her face as she smiled. She had wanted to be able to teach Naruto so many things. She wanted to be able to guide Kakashi, helping him to farther adapt and move on in life. Maybe help find him a significant other one day. She wanted to watch both her boys grow up. But now they would have only each other and the promise from the third. He would watch over them and see that they had everything they needed. Minato also watched Kakashi and wondered if this was the right choice. He didn't want to burden Kakashi. The boy was only 14 years old. He was still a child himself. But the third could not take on Naruto himself. The village would have been in an uproar and would accuse the third Hokage as being under the influence of the fox demon. They would oust him without a second thought, and then who would look after the two boys? Of all the people that they knew, Minato knew he couldn't burden some of them. Others weren't trustworthy enough with an infant, let alone one that had a demon sealed in him. Lastly, some of the people they knew, although they would have the compassion and understanding to raise the child, they didn't have the necessary shinobi skills needed to protect an infant like Naruto. And Minato had no illusions that everything would go smoothly. He knew people would attack not only Naruto but whoever it was that decided to take in Naruto. The person could be killed and Naruto not far behind. He didn't want anyone to lose their lives over the decision they made. He knew there was an outside chance that Kakashi could, despite being extremely talented and experienced, be killed trying to protect Naruto from the villagers. It wasn't outside the realm of possibility, but Kakashi was the best choice they had. The third Hokage watched the scene before him, lost in his own thoughts. Kakashi was so young. He was reliable and loyal. He was so mature for his age in the way he thought and acted, which always made people, including himself, forget that Kakashi is just a child. But a child he is, and this may be too much of a burden for him to handle. Yet looking in Kakashi's eye and his posture as he held the baby, the third knew that Kakashi will not give up on what he has now taken on as his responsibility. The boy will honor the request he has made to his sensei and his wife. No matter what happens now, Kakashi was determined to see this all the way through. The third internally sighed. He would keep his own promise that he made to the fourth and his wife. He would make sure that they had everything they needed. He would also make sure that there were people who could help teach Kakashi how to take care of an infant's needs. The path that Kakashi has chosen won't be easy. But the third was just as determined to be there for them whenever they needed him. Kushina suddenly gasped and then closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed and then stopped altogether. Her head turned slightly towards Minato. A small sad smile permanently froze into her face. Minato, now too weak to hold himself up, slightly collapsed back down on his side. His left arm was wrapped around Kushina. His right arm pinned to the ground under his side. The light was slowly beginning to fade from his eyes as he watched Kakashi and Naruto. His children. He used the last of his strength to speak one final thought. Love each other as you are now family. Protect each other and forgive each other when you have a fight. Don't isolate yourselves when people choose to show you kindness and friendship. We love you both and we always be with you. The words grew softer and softer until they were merely whispered. And then no more. Minato's eyes dimmed and then closed. The rise and fall of his chest stopped, and with that the fourth Hokage and sensei was gone along with his wife. Leaving behind a 14-year-old boy, with a newborn not even an hour old alone. Alone against a cruel and uncaring world. Kakashi stood holding Naruto, who was still asleep, in his arms. They were now in their apartment, having left with the Hokage to return to the village. Sarutobi sat on the couch with his arms bent at the elbows. Each one was resting on his thighs as his head rested face down in the palms of his hands. Kakashi didn't know what to say to the Hokage. His mind was still reeling from losing his next to last of his precious people. He would have probably still been at the site of Minato's and Kushina's deaths if it wasn't for the urgency of the Hokage's voice telling him that they needed to get back to the village and to Kakashi's apartment as quickly as possible. The Anbu guard were left behind with instructions to have the bodies of the fourth Hokage and his wife to be taken to the morgue. If the morgue was still there. They didn't know how extensive the damage was to the village, but they knew it was bad. Kakashi was shocked that his apartment building was still standing. So here they were, one sitting, one standing, and both feeling overwhelmed. Sarutobi finally looked up at the young shinobi and sighed deeply. This is a time for action, not reflection, he thought. Kakashi, the third, spoke tiredly. Hi, Hokage-sama. Kakashi stood up straighter now. I want you to remain here in your apartment for the time being. It wouldn't do to be out with Naruto just yet. I will have supplies sent here immediately. Enough supplies to last for a little while. How long, sir? Only for a month. I am going to set you and Naruto up in a safe house in the outskirts of the Leaf. I need you to keep the baby out of sight of the villagers for obvious reasons. I will send a few trusted ninja with a bassinet and other baby supplies that will be needed. I will also send you provisions as well. I will send Rei Sarahara over and show you how to prepare the formula and show you how to do some basic care for Naruto for now. She is ninja of Chunin rank and has a young family of her own. She probably won't be able to come every day, but she will be able to come over most of the time. Also, she can be trusted to keep quiet about Naruto. Rei can assist you with the baby when you need it. And trust me, Kakashi, you will need help with him. The Hokage looked pointedly at Naruto. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your help, Kakashi replied with an eye smile. He then looked down at Naruto. Rocking his new charge gently in his arms, Kakashi couldn't help but feel a bit of relief that in spite of everything that has happened, he wasn't alone and he would still be useful to his sensei. Kakashi may have not gotten to them in time, but they still trusted him and wanted him to take care of their most precious gift in life. The thought warmed his heart. He continued to rock the baby gently as a soft, loving expression appeared on his face. Sarutobi watched Kakashi intently for a moment. So, he thought, Kakashi is already starting to bond with the infant. It would be wise to get the paperwork on this done soon, very soon. When the council finds out about this, they will most likely want to pull the two apart. If only for the reason that Kakashi won't be able to go on any more long-term missions for a while. It most certainly will not be because they have a love for either of the boys. One being made into a Jinchuriki and the other considered trash and a traitor even though he hasn't betrayed the village. No, it'll be a toss-up as to which of them the council can't stand more. The only reason that they tolerate Kakashi is because of his skills as a ninja. And I'm not delusional to think that they would keep Naruto around for something better than only for the sake of using the fox's power. I'm definitely going to have my hands full with the council. I better make sure I have some reinforcements of mine own to help keep them and the villagers in check. Another sigh escaped Sarutobi's mouth. He needed to tell Kakashi one last thing before he left to take care of their immediate needs. Once the Leaf Shinobi knew that the Hokage was back in his office, they would be surely bombarding him with requests of assistance for the different sectors of the village as well as bringing in reports of the causalities of this most recent battle. Kakashi, there is one last thing I want to tell you. Before I head out to take care of your immediate needs. The third spoke slowly as though gathering his thoughts. Hi. Kakashi had now looked back at the Hokage with a curious expression. I will be doing the paperwork for the adoption. This needs to be done as soon as possible. I fear the council will give us hell over this as it is. So, I must ask you, how do you want the boy to be called? The third looked intently at the young shinobi waiting for his response. Kakashi though tilted his head to the side slightly with confusion. How he is to be called? His name is Naruto. Kakashi, now looking like the Hokage, must have been drunk or something. He was at the site, wasn't he? He heard his sensei say the infant's name. No, I mean, do you want Naruto to be named after your surname of Hitaki or? The third stopped there, still looking intently at the boy. No, Kakashi replied adamantly. He should be named after his father. No way should he be named after me. I see, said the third, but the fourth has told me that the baby must not carry his name. If the fourth's enemies were to find out that he has a son, they will come after him, and all the more so if they know that he is a Jinchuriki. Kakashi said nothing, only standing still and absorbing what the Hokage had just said. I want to name him after Kushina then. How about Uzumaki? Kakashi said pensively. Yes, that would work well. We will go with that then. You don't want to be named as his adoptive father though? No, I am his big brother. Minato and Kushina were family to me. They treated me as if I were their son by blood. They took me in after my real father had died. You heard sensei, sir. He called me his son. I will be acknowledged as Naruto's big brother. Kakashi was clutching Naruto closely to his chest as he spoke. Sarutobi could see the determination that brimmed from Kakashi's one uncovered eye. He knew that the boy's mind was made up and trying to change that wouldn't happen. But if he was honest with himself, Sarutobi knew this was for the best. Sarutobi thought back to a conversation that he had with Minato and Kushina at their home around 2 years ago. At that time, Minato hadn't been named the next Hokage yet. The third had been asked to stop by when he had time as they wanted to discuss with him an important matter. Sarutobi couldn't fathom what it was about, but hurried over to their place as soon as he finished his duties for the day. What they wanted to discuss mildly shocked him. Minato and Kushina wanted to adopt Kakashi as their own. They believed that Kakashi would be better off with them. And since he was staying with them anyway, why not make it official? Sarutobi said that he wasn't at all against the idea and that he would get the adoption papers ready for them. They could swing by the next day around noon and sign the papers. When the next afternoon approached, the couple showed up and were given the papers. Minato read first and then passed off the finished page to Kushina, who then read it as well. Once all of it was read, they both signed the documents. Now all they had to do was wait for the approval of the adoption committee at the orphanage. But unexpected opposition came up by none other than Danzo Shimura. He went to the council and said that Kakashi wasn't ever placed in the orphanage to begin with. Second, Minato was Kakashi's sensei. None of the other Junin were sensei to their own children. It wasn't allowed for fear of bias or favoritism by the parent. The Junin that were chosen had to be unbiased in their approach of teaching and in handling situations with their students out on missions. A sensei that showed a biased opinion about students was a liability to the program. Needless to say, the council flatly denied the adoption so forcefully that the orphanage committee immediately backed down. It would only be a year later when the third Hokage would name his successor for his position. Minato Namikaze. The name infuriated Danzo as the man had suggested Orochimaru for the position. He probably thinks I deliberately shot his nominee down out of spite. For not allowing the Namikazes the right to adopt Kakashi. Sarutobi thought. It doesn't matter in the end. I couldn't choose Orochimaru because of his lust for power and sinister intentions. Neither of those things would do the village any good. Sarutobi broke from his deep reflection when he heard a contented cooing sound coming from Naruto. Sarutobi couldn't help but smile for a moment looking at the two boys. Then his face returned to a more serious expression. Now Saratobi had to make a decision about the future of both boys. He sighed deeply as he looked at Kakashi's adamant face staring back at him. So, the boy wants to be big brother EH? Well, it would have been nice if it could have been done the way Minato and Kushina had wanted it. The boys would have been legally made brothers. But it doesn't matter now. I'll get the necessary paperwork done for guardianship. This is the best I can do for them. A pensive Saratobi thought. Kakashi, I will get the paperwork for guardianship done this evening. I will have someone bring them to you tomorrow for signing around noon. Thank you, Hokage-sama. A grateful Kakashi replied. Now I should be going. The sooner I do, the sooner you will have everything you will need. Plus, the right to be guardian and big brother to little Naruto there. A small smile made its way to the third's face as he spoke. Kakashi eye smiled back and faster than he could open his eye again. The third had teleported back to his office. Kakashi walked over to the couch and sat down with his little brother. I can hardly believe that this really happening, sensei. He thought, but as I promised you, I will take good care of your son and my little brother. It only took 30 minutes for the first of the promised supplies to start arriving at Kakashi's apartment. The ninja that came brought with them bags of formula and diapers for Naruto, while others brought Kakashi groceries and toiletries. It was an hour later before more ninja showed up with the baby furniture cleverly hidden in scrolls for easy transport. The villagers didn't need to know what was going on at Kakashi's apartment, though most of the villagers wouldn't have cared at the moment. Still, the ones that shared the apartment building with Kakashi was another matter. Since the attack only hours ago, people have been trying to deal with their grief and salvage their lives from the brutal assault. They were angry and wanted to lash out, but since the culprit of their misery was long gone now, they were trying to channel their anger in more constructive ways. The village was heavily damaged in the attack. Some of the residential areas where civilians lived were the hardest hit. Over 600 civilians lost their lives. Entire neighborhood blocks were wiped out, either from direct hits or from the aftermath of fires breaking out. The second worst hit area was in the shopping district in the east end of the village, along with several restaurants were lost. The village wall along the east end of the village was smashed flat from the gates to over 1,000 feet to the right of them. The Hokage Tower and the hospital were untouched, as well as most of the clan's residents which are in the west end of the village. It will take weeks of rebuilding to get the village back to normal. There were so many dead bodies scattered everywhere. Most were simply placed in large holes several feet deep. Several bodies to a hole. The holes were covered over with dirt again, while grave markers for each of the dead would be placed in the cemetery later. For now, it was imperative to remove the dead before disease began to spread through the village, which would cause a far worse disaster than had the Nine Tails had. Emergency tents for temporary homes were set up for those who lacked them. Also, emergency medical units were set up as well to help with treating mildly injured patients. The more severely injured were rushed straight to the hospital. Meanwhile, rebuilding of the village began immediately. The team of leaders responsible began by splitting into 3 teams. Team 1 would tackle the residential areas. Team 2 would bring the shopping area back. And Team 3 would take on the wall and gates of the eastern end. The Hokage wasted no time to send a messenger hawk to the head of the Fire Nation, the daimyo, to request assistance. The daimyo had sent a reply 10 days later. In the message, the daimyo told the third Hokage that help was being sent from all over the Fire Nation. Everything that the Hokage had requested was granted generously to the Leaf Village. The first wave of relief came a mere 2 days after receiving the daimyo's letter, as the closest villages began by sending in large amounts of food and medical supplies. Many laborers began arriving as well, a good many of them skilled to work in different materials. As the number of the workforce grew, shinobi check-in stations were set up. Everyone that came had to have clearance papers with them from their respective villages. Their village leader's seal with their own specific signets had to be clearly shown on the papers in order to be allowed in Konoha. It was only 5 days after the first arrival of workers that the building materials began to flow into Konoha as well. And when it did, the village rang with a shout of joy. Now they knew that the leaf would truly begin its restoration. But as people cheered for renewal, another man was busy watching everything with sense of anger from the shadows. This wasn't supposed to happen this way. He wanted the village to fall and everyone in it to burn along with his clan. Now it looked as though he would have to take up the elder shinobi's offer after all. Spitting in disgust on the ground, the shadowy figure leapt away in the trees and retreated back to his hidden headquarters in the Land of Rain, promising himself to send a messenger bird to the elder once he talked with his second-in-command. Kakashi's apartment was fully supplied for a full month as the Hokage had promised. Knowing that his little brother would have everything he needed now in easy reach was a weight off of Kakashi's mind. The papers for guardianship had been brought and Kakashi had signed them and returned them via Pakun, his trusty little pug. They were now officially a family. Though the council was still not pleased about it, they couldn't do anything about now. Naruto needed someone, and thanks to the Hokage it was clear that it would be Kakashi. The council didn't care for the child as anything more than as a weapon at best or as a nuisance at worst. Danzo had argued that the infant should be raised by someone with the village's best interest at heart, to make sure the child was an obedient tool of Konoha. His argument was shot down by the third, saying that the child was just that, a child and a human being. Nothing good would come of isolating and brainwashing a child to think he wasn't anything more than a weapon. That could seriously backfire, and then what? No, the child would remain with his guardian Kakashi. If Naruto grew up among the village children, if he learned of what it's like to show compassion and love, it would go a long way in making him want to protect the village out of love for his precious people. The will of fire would be ignited in the boy, rather than have nothing to ground him at all and just trust that he won't someday want to know why he was treated as an object, and then blow up on them later, having a repeat of the first QB incident. Nothing more was said on the matter, and the third went about to secure the next part of his promise to Kakashi, which was a woman by the name Rei Sarahara, who had stopped by that very evening, and begin to teach Kakashi what he needed to know about basic care of an infant. Rei was a woman of about 5 feet 6 inches tall. Her hair was black and of medium length with wispy bangs that hung just over deep brown eyes. She had an athletic build. Her personality was cheerful and personable. Though Kakashi found people difficult to personally be around, Rei was pleasant and easygoing. She was patient in teaching and answering questions Kakashi had. When they had fed Naruto and changed his diaper, she promised she would come every other day to check on them and give Kakashi a break, so he could get out for a few hours to stretch his muscles and relax a bit. Rei had told Kakashi that he would need it. It has been over 2 weeks since then, and now it was on an early afternoon in the Hitaki residence. Kakashi sat on the couch with Naruto in his arms, staring up at Kakashi with large cerulean blue eyes. They sparkled when Naruto was happy, and he was very happy right now. He was busy feeding from the bottle Kakashi held in his hand, while Kakashi's left arm was wrapped underneath Naruto, his head resting in the crook of Kakashi's arm. Kakashi began talking to Naruto as he nursed. All the while a small smile was showing on the infant's face as the bottle moved slightly as he fed. "Well, little brother, I think you and I will be moving from this little apartment soon. In 2 weeks from now we will have a house with a backyard. And when you are old enough I will take you out there to explore it. There are even woods all around, so we can go exploring then too. What do you think, age?" Naruto's smile got bigger and he waved his little arms and legs in approval. He loved the sound of Kakashi's voice. It always soothed and relaxed him. And he would watch Kakashi wherever he went within the apartment. If Kakashi got out of his line of sight, Naruto would wail in despair if he was gone for more than a couple of minutes at a time. Naruto would also sleep in his bassinet just fine. However, he preferred sleeping close to Kakashi. Most nights Kakashi would place Naruto in the bassinet to sleep, but since Naruto would wake up every 3 to 4 hours for a feed, Kakashi would eventually end up having Naruto sleep on top of Kakashi's chest. Naruto finished the bottle and Kakashi removed it from his mouth and placed it on the end table next to the couch. Kakashi then placed Naruto in a standing position and having Naruto leaning against him, Naruto's head just above his shoulder, while Kakashi placed his right hand on Naruto's back, gently patting him. Waiting for Naruto to burp. The expected sound came with no spit up this time, to Kakashi's relief. He moved Naruto quickly back into a cradled position in his arms as he rose to go to the kitchen, placing Naruto in a baby seat set on the table. Kakashi went to then prepare himself something to eat. Nothing extravagant today for lunch. A simple bowl of miso soup with broiled fish and rice did the trick just nicely. As soon as he was done, Kakashi sensed a chocolate presence just at his door. It was Rei, coming to check in on them and give Kakashi a breather. He moved Naruto over to the small coffee table, having set it so Naruto could see him as he went to answer the door. Upon opening it, there stood Rei wearing a smile and having a small box that looked like it came from the bakery in her hand. "Hello, Kakashi. I thought I would bring you some of these cookies from the Inoue bakery. They make the best chocolate chip cookies and peanut butter cookies anywhere," she said as began to walk into the granted entrance. "Hello, Rei, and thanks for the cookies," he replied as he stepped aside to let her in. "You are welcome. So how is Naruto doing?" "He's right behind you, Rei." Kakashi pointed a finger towards Naruto. Rei turned around and her smile widened as she saw Naruto sitting in his baby carrier watching her every move with a toothless grin. Naruto had come to accept Rei and will allow her to stay with him when Kakashi is gone. But when they first met, Naruto didn't want anyone but Kakashi. It took a good 3 days before Rei was even allowed to hold him, and feeding was out of the question. While Kakashi was worried, Rei was patient. She talked softly to Naruto and fussed over him, while continuing to try feeding him or changing his diaper or whatever needed to be done at the time. Soon, though, her patience was rewarded with Naruto finally accepting her. Rei walked over the Naruto and picked him up from his carrier. She held him gently and cooed at him. Naruto made happy baby sounds all the while. Kakashi smiled at the two. He was glad Rei was willing to come and help him with Naruto. She taught him a lot. And being able to get out of the apartment was an added bonus as well. Speaking of which, it was time for Kakashi to take this opportunity to go and train for a while. Naruto was just fed, so he would be good for a few hours. And Rei would take care of things in the meantime. Walking up to the two, Kakashi placed his hand on Rei's shoulder to gain her attention. "Rei, thanks for coming over. I need to go out for a while. Naruto has just been fed about 30 minutes ago, so he should be fine for a while. I promise I won't be gone for long. It will be good, Kakashi. Don't worry about anything, I'll keep Naruto safe and happy while you're gone." Rei smiled at him and Kakashi's eyes smiled back. Nothing more was said as Kakashi went to get his training gear and Rei went and sat on the couch with Naruto. Soon Kakashi was out the door and running across the rooftops headed for the training grounds. "Lord Danzo, we have received a messenger sent by our ally in Rain." A dark-clad hooded figure wearing a pig mask kneeling before Danzo said. "Good. Now tell me, what his answer is." "He has accepted your terms, Lord Danzo." Danzo, who was seated behind his desk, leaned back in his chair. A smirk appeared on his face. "I see. Prepare a messenger hawk and send this message to our esteemed colleague." The smirk not leaving Danzo's face. "Tell him that we are willing to meet with him in 10 days from now. At the usual meeting spot." "Yes, sir." "And Operative Pig." "Yes, sir." "Do stress that we expect full cooperation from him this time." "Yes, sir." With that, the pig operative stood and left quickly from Danzo's presence to carry out the task. Danzo just smiled to himself, thinking, "Soon, Saratobi, very soon this village and everything and everyone in it will be mine. I will take what rightfully is mine. You can't stop this from happening." Kakashi was finishing up his training at the moment. He was sweating profusely as he prepared to use a fireball jutsu against his clone. The clone ran at Kakashi, throwing 2 kunai with paper bombs attached to their ends. Kakashi easily dodged as he weaved the hand signs for the jutsu. In the next instant, fire came forth and the clone vanished in a puff of smoke. Kakashi stood breathing hard, but he sensed someone's chakra. This time it was Ibiki Moreno, a fellow Anbu, heading towards him. Kakashi turned to face him as he approached. Jogging up swiftly, Ibiki came to a stop. He looked at Kakashi with a bit of a smirk as he spoke. "Hey, working out as hard as usual, I see." "Yeah, it's been a couple of days since I was last able to get out for this session. Rei had something come up yesterday, so I had to wait. But I doubt that's the reason you came out here though." "Ah, you're right. The old man wants to see you as soon as you're done here." "Well, I am finished for the day. I was going to go to the store right after, but I guess it'll have to wait." "Well, don't keep the old man waiting too long, Kakashi." Ibiki laughed. He knew Kakashi would be late even if he wasn't going to go to the store or anywhere else. "Right, well, thanks for the heads up. I'm off then." And with that Kakashi left Ibiki, who only shook his head as he made his own way out of the training grounds towards his own destination. Kakashi didn't procrastinate going to Hokage Tower. Normally he would, but not today. Something told him that the Hokage would have some good news for the silver-haired nin, and Kakashi was curious as to what it could be. So he arrived on time, to the mild surprise of his Hokage. "Kakashi," said the Hokage, who didn't want to waste time on the topic at hand. "I have the place where you and Naruto are to be living now prepared. It's on the outskirts of Konoha. But it's large enough for the two of you and has a clearing around it big enough to make a play area for Naruto. There is woods all around though. The house is one of our safe houses after all. That would do nicely for the both of us. Hokage-sama, thank you for giving us this home." Kakashi, if he weren't wearing his face mask, would be showing off the biggest smile ever right now. But instead, the Hokage saw the eye smile that was purely Kakashi. "I'm pleased you like it. But I'm sure you will want to see it first?" "Yes, but I already know we will like it, sir. It has to be 10 times better than my little dinky apartment." You'll get no argument from me, Kakashi. "Very well then, I will take you to see it tomorrow then at 10 in the morning. Does that sound good?" "Yes, sir. I will be here at 10. "Good. Then you are dismissed, Kakashi." "Yes, sir." Kakashi headed out the door. He was soon out of the building and racing across the rooftops. He was excited for the first time in a very long time. Kakashi was excited. He was so disappointed when he learned that the council wouldn't let his sensei and Kushina adopt him. He had wanted to belong in a family again for so long. And was so happy when his sensei had asked him if he wanted to become a permanent member of their little family. It had been the happiest moment of his young life. Only to be shot down by the council. Kakashi didn't cry that afternoon when he learned the news. But inwardly he cried for a while over it. But now there was new hope. Naruto and he would be a family. Kakashi picked up his pace as he headed back to his apartment. The sun was beginning to set and Kakashi couldn't help but smile as he thought about the new house. "I can hardly wait to see it," he thought. "Soon Naruto and I will have a house to live in and maybe a new beginning for both of us." True to his word, the Hokage had taken Kakashi the next day to see the new home. It was everything that Kakashi and Naruto would need. It was a 2-story frame house that contained a living room of medium size, a kitchen with a breakfast nook, a study or playroom, bathroom, and in the back of the house was a laundry room with back door leading to the yard. The second floor contained 3 bedrooms, one of which had its own bathroom attached. While the other 2 bedrooms had to share a bathroom. The third had finished giving Kakashi the tour of the house. They stood on the back porch and discussed further plans for moving. When they finished their discussion, they both went about to carry on with their day. The third returned to the tower and to his office, immediately setting himself to work on some shinobi assignments that needed to be approved and sent to the mission's office. While Kakashi returned home to his apartment to begin packing up Naruto's and his belongings for the move. Rei was there, of course, as she watched over Naruto so Kakashi could concentrate on packing. Only shinobi that were handpicked by the Hokage were given the task of hauling the furniture that was needed for the house. No civilians were involved in the move. The Hokage couldn't risk it. And even with shinobi, he had chosen carefully. They may be loyal to him, but that didn't mean he would trust them completely. He knew that they didn't like Kakashi, while they tolerated him enough to work with him on missions as professionals. He knew he couldn't trust their behavior beyond that. And with Naruto being made the Jinchuriki, which went without saying that the possibility existed for open hostility towards the child. Therefore, he gave them strict orders to be done and out of the house by 2 o'clock that afternoon. While Kakashi was told not to show up with Naruto until after that time. If the shinobi involved saw who exactly it was that was moving into the house, there could be trouble that would soon follow. So it was well after 3 before Kakashi showed up with Naruto in a cloth carrier strapped to his chest. And 2 garbage bags, one in each hand, that was filled with their clothes inside. Rei was walking along with him, also carrying a couple of bags with her for the 2 males. They reached the house without trouble, and wasted no time getting in. The bags were placed on the couch and Kakashi then led Rei on a tour of the house before they got Naruto and himself settled in. Rei told Kakashi that she would be back in 2 days' time. If they needed anything or had emergency to send one of the ninkin to get her. And with that Rei left. Kakashi took Naruto over to the couch so he could give him a bottle. Naruto was looking at Kakashi from his place from close up against Kakashi's chest. He smiled up at Kakashi and managed to have a hold of Kakashi's shirt with one tiny fist. "Hey, little man, you can let go of your brother's shirt now." Kakashi couldn't help but let out a small chuckle at his little brother's antics. Naruto let go of Kakashi only after Kakashi had unstrapped the baby carrier from himself and gently pulling Naruto out of the cloth and straps that held him to his big brother. Naruto still had a fist tightly grasping Kakashi's shirt though. Kakashi sighed. "You can't have your bottle if you're clinging to me. You want to eat, don't you, Naruto?" Naruto looked up at Kakashi, his grin suddenly gone, and so was the fist holding Kakashi's shirt. Kakashi laughed at this, making Naruto smile and make his happy baby sounds. Kakashi stopped laughing and gently hugged his little brother. Then positioned Naruto in a cradled position in his arms. Once settled, Kakashi grabbed the bottle off of the table and placed it at Naruto's lips. The baby started to feed immediately. "Well, I'll say this for you, Naruto. You certainly have an appetite." Naruto only smiled up at him while trying to touch Kakashi's hand that held the bottle. Kakashi extended his pinky finger to Naruto, who after a few tries was able to grab onto it. They stayed this way until Naruto was done feeding. As soon as Kakashi had patted his back and burped him, Naruto was yawning and ready to sleep. Kakashi got up and placed him in his baby carrier. Then proceeded to go upstairs to Kakashi's bedroom. Naruto had his own room, but for now he would be staying in Kakashi's room until he was older. Kakashi wasn't sure when exactly he would put Naruto in his own room. But for now it just made more sense to keep Naruto close to him. He placed the infant in the bassinet and pulled the blanket over him. Kakashi stroked Naruto's face gently, whispering the sweet dreams to him before turning to getting their clothes and putting away in the closets and drawers. Once this task was done, Kakashi decided to take a nap as well. He learned from Ray that he would have to adjust to Naruto's sleeping and eating schedule. But eventually Naruto would be able over time to get himself acclimated with life outside the womb. So laying down across the bed, Kakashi closed his eyes and fell asleep quickly. 4 figures stood on branches of the trees waiting for something or someone to appear. 3 of the figures wore all black from head to toe. They wore headbands that were from different hidden villages. Each headband had a scratch through the hidden village's symbol. They wore black cloaks with red clouds on them. They stood silently, each in a different tree as in a formation. The one who was obviously their leader wore black as well. But he also wore black armor over his chest and arm guards of metal. He didn't cover himself in a cloak like his comrades. He wore instead a look of authority, and as his eyes gazed off into the distance, he saw the movement of the person he was waiting for. Within minutes the arriving party showed up at the rendezvous site. The armor-clad shinobi dropped down gracefully from the tree and approached the newcomers. The newcomers were a group of 4 as well, but unlike their counterparts, they were all from one village and 3 of them wore the masks of Anbu. They were dressed accordingly as Anbu. Their silver and black armor shone in the fading light of day. Their leader was an older man, who had half his face wrapped in bandages covering his left eye, while his arm was also covered in bandages. He had a white shirt that fit loosely with dark shinobi pants, and all of this covered with a robe that left the left shoulder and arm uncovered for some reason. "Danzo, it's been a while since we last met," replied the black-armored shinobi. "Yes, it has been, Madara," a smirking Danzo replied. "You should have listened to me when it came to dealing with the Kyuubi. I told you that the 4th would catch on to you quickly." He may have been young, but he wasn't stupid. Madara frowned deeply at Danzo's words. He was never one to hear that he failed at something. "Yeah, well, at least the nuisance is now buried 6 feet under. You'll get no argument from me," Danzo offered. Then his face turned deeply serious. "You are willing to agree with the terms I set for this meeting?" A critical eye watched Madara intensely for his reaction. "Yes. You want me to help you gain the position of Hokage. And we both want the Uchiha dead. Their eyes will become your possession. And in return for these things," Danzo interrupted, "I will grant you and your followers supplies and a place in Konoha as a base of operations, while you complete your own objective. Remember, Madara, I want to rule Konoha even after you create your world of peace." Danzo replied with a grimace. "I have no problem with that, Danzo. We both want power, and I'm willing to give you Konoha and more for your cooperation in this undertaking." "Then it's agreed then. We should begin with harassing the Uchiha clan right away. Why not take out the Hokage first? It would make getting rid of the clan much easier. Yes, it would, but we need to take advantage of the turmoil caused by the Kyuubi attack. We can blame the Kyuubi's presence in the village on the Uchiha clan. Because only the Uchiha can control the Kyuubi with the Sharingan. I like that approach. Even if it will take some time to bring things to a head. Yes, but we both need some time as well to get everything we need in place for the second phase of this plan. And trust me, Madara, the villagers are a very stupid lot and easily manipulated under normal circumstances. But with them losing their precious people and having hardships to endure, they will be more gullible than ever. Danzo's smirk had returned once again. And Madara smirked as well. Very well then, Madara said. I doubt that you will need us for the task of manipulating the villagers. However, do you need us to help with anything else within the village? Yes. When the time comes I will need your organization to send in troops to help Root take out the Uchiha. As well as bring the village under martial law. Until I have the key people in places throughout the governing structure of Konoha. Your organization will be vital in helping us against rebellious shinobi and civilians who refuse my regime. In the meantime, just prepare and wait for us. Alright, please keep us informed as to your status in the meantime. I will, but now we should all leave for now. I will send a messenger to you every 3 weeks. The men shook hands on their deal and departed from each other. Each taking his team back to their headquarters. As Danzo moved swiftly away and back into the trees towards the Leaf Village. His entourage followed silently along, each member deep in his own thoughts. They continued this way for more than 20 minutes before the Anbu operative wearing the bird mask decided he needed clarification of some things. So he moved up alongside of his master and spoke. Lord Danzo, may I have permission to speak? Danzo looked at his subordinate and nodded. Are you going to let Madara gain all that he desires? If he gets what he wants it won't do Konoha any good or you sir. Yes, I'm well aware of what you're saying Bird. But rest assured I have no intention of letting that traitor gain more than necessary. I fully intend to end his miserable existence as soon as everything I need him for has been accomplished. I see sir. It goes without saying then that we will support you to our fullest abilities. I'm counting on that operative Bird. Nothing more was said. The Anbu slipped back into formation and all four continued on their way back to the Leaf. 6 months has passed since the treacherous meeting between two evil ambitious men had taken place. And in that time the village was well on its way to recovery. The walls had been completely restored with both of the eastern gates being put back in place within it. The civilian residents' homes were also replaced. The eastern shopping district was nearly complete now. Only a few more restaurants and a few novelty shops remained and the wooded framework for those were already set up. But as the village itself was healing, the villagers were another matter. Rumors were circulating that the esteemed Uchiha clan might have been responsible for letting the Kyuubi attack the village. No one knew why this might have been so. And no one who had heard the rumors had the guts to confront the Uchiha about it. While some thought that the rumors were just that and ignored them. Others were having doubts about the clan. Many people were still very angry over the attack and wanted their justifiable vengeance. But mostly they wanted to take it out on the demon child. Kakashi had need of a few things for his meals as well as some more formula and baby food for Naruto. Naruto was now 6 months old and even though he still needed his bottle. Ray had told Kakashi that soft foods could now be given to Naruto. So now Kakashi was headed to the market for the groceries they need. Before entering the village, Kakashi would always henge into a different person. He chose dark brown hair that was short and spiky with brown eyes. His skin was lightly tanned with no blemishes or scars. His outfit would be a short red yukata with dark gray full-length pants. This was a common look in the Leaf so most people never bothered to give Kakashi a second look. Once the henge was complete, Kakashi would then leap out of the tree he was in. And begin to walk out in the clearing and into the village. Once in the village, Kakashi would go about his business without harassment. And sometimes he would pick up useful information about how the village was feeling about certain things that happened recently. Right now as he walked towards the produce stands that were set up along both sides of the street by village farmers. The farmers would come into the village each day to sell their crops. As he now stood in front of a table of produce, Kakashi heard people talking about the Uchiha clan. He wasn't particularly liking what he was hearing. The Uchiha are being moved outside of the leaf into their own district? He thought as he stood looking at the broccoli that he was going to purchase. If the Uchiha are being segregated, then it means they will be kept under surveillance by Anbu. It also means that there is some truth to the rumors. But what is exactly the truth of the matter? Somehow I have a hard time believing the Uchiha would do this even if they had a reason. There's something more to this than what is known. I need to see the Hokage now. Kakashi left without the broccoli and headed for Hokage Tower. There's only one person he trusted to tell him the truth. Arriving at the tower, Kakashi decided to head to the side of the building. Then placing chakra in his feet, Kakashi walked straight up the side of it. Once he had gotten to the desired height, Kakashi made his way onto the ledge and walked along it. When he neared the specific window of a particular office that he wanted, he peered inside to see if its occupant was there and alone. Kakashi dropped the hinge immediately upon seeing the Hokage was indeed alone. He made to tap on the glass but was stopped by the Hokage's voice. "Come on in, Kakashi. I was expecting to see you soon." The Hokage was facing the window while seated in his chair. However, he wasn't looking out the window, but rather was busy reading a scroll in his hands. Kakashi did as told and hopped inside the third's office. Coming to stand in front of the third's desk, he didn't waste time with his inquiry. "Hokage-sama, I've heard something out on the streets today." "Oh?" The third turned his chair to face Kakashi while placing the scroll down on the desk, his face showing a knowing look. "I think I know what that is, but please tell me, Kakashi." "Hi. The word on the street is that the Uchiha are being segregated to their own district on the outskirts of Konoha." "Yes, the rumor is true, although it's hardly a rumor at this point. The site has been chosen for the move and all that is left now is to build the compound that the Uchiha will be living in." "But why? Why are they being moved at all?" a slightly anxious Kakashi asked. Something was nagging at him that separating the Uchiha from the village wasn't a good idea. Though he couldn't say why. Because some people have become quite uncomfortable with them. They believe that the Uchiha are responsible for the Kyuubi attack by use of their Sharingan. But that doesn't even make sense. Why would they use the Kyuubi to attack their own home? This village is just as much theirs as ours. Trust me, Kakashi, it doesn't make sense to me either. But for now it would be best for the Uchiha to have their own district. I am permitting Fugaku Uchiha to preside over the compound's construction. I also will allow them to set up their own businesses within the district. The villagers may go and shop there as they would in any other district of the village. And those who do not don't have to, of course. I see. But there may be troublemakers that will use that to their advantage. I'm quite aware of that possibility. The Uchiha police will be watching over the district. Yes, and the Anbu will be in the shadows doing the same but to the Uchiha. Kakashi said somberly, while the third grimaced. Yes, Kakashi, I'm afraid that this is true also. I will keep the number of Anbu down, and order them only to observe but not get involved unless there is valid reason for doing so. Mostly I want them to just do surveillance and that's all. This is because of the council, isn't it? You are sharp, Kakashi. Yes, the council has a part in it. I can't help that there is something more going on here. But it's difficult to get a grasp on it. Kakashi, I may have need of your services soon. Then the third remembered Naruto, and decided to ask of the child's welfare. Naruto, he is 6 months old now, isn't he? Yes, he is, sir. He is a lively and happy baby. I'm so proud to be his big brother. I've been training harder than ever since I've come to realize that his happiness may be taken away by the village. There have been many talking on the streets asking where the demon child was hiding. They want to hurt him. At this, Kakashi also grimaced as he thought about the last 4 or 5 weeks. Every time he would go out of the house to go training or to shop in the village, the talk of where Naruto was kept surfacing. Kakashi knew that he had to keep up his training and also he continued to strengthen the traps he placed around the little house they lived in. Even Kakashi's ninkin have been getting more training as well. The villagers will come to a place where they will tolerate Naruto's existence in the village. If only because I will lay down the law. But even so you will need to be on your guard whenever the two of you are out. It's not only that, but what about the children Naruto's age? I'm sure my little brother will have to join the academy and then what will happen? I don't want those brats tormenting my brother. I will make a decree that no one is permitted to speak about the 9 tails and Naruto. This way I hope to give Naruto a chance to make friends and have connections in some way with his village. I hope that this is the case. Hokage-sama, sighed Kakashi. He was worried. He couldn't help it. Kakashi could never make friends with his peers. Once his father's reputation was destroyed, the villagers and shinobi alike persecuted the man relentlessly. And because Kakashi was the White Fang's son, he suffered as well. For the children watched and mimicked their parents' actions, since they saw that it was alright to be mean to Kakashi's dad. The children saw no reason not to persecute Kakashi as well. They, meaning Tsukumo and his son, were bad people, and deserved to be treated this way. This thinking caused Tsukumo to end his life, and left Kakashi devastated and alone. Had it not been for Minato, Kakashi would have died in his sorrow. Well, you had better get back to Naruto, Kakashi. I still have work to do. But I will contact you when I'm ready for you to help me with the Uchiha matter. Hi. Kakashi wasted no time to go back out the window, performing the henge once again as he started up the side to the roof and from there leaping across the rooftops heading back to the farmer's market. There was still the little matter of procuring food for his tiny family. Rei was busy changing Naruto's diaper. She was deep in thought as she did this task. For the past 2 weeks her husband had been trying to persuade his wife to stop going to Kakashi's house. He kept insisting that it would be best for everyone involved. Rei couldn't understand his sudden change in attitude. In the beginning, Tomoya was supportive of Rei helping the children out. He loved children and was a wonderful father to his own 3 children. She remembered him being so adamant about supporting Kakashi and Naruto. They are children of this village, he had said. Despite what the circumstances are, they need support from the adults of this village. So why, Rei thought, why this sudden lack of interest and support now? And as Rei continued to dwell on the subject, she heard footsteps on the front porch. And apparently the baby knew of who it was at that. For Naruto had immediately began making his happy sounds and waving his little arms and kicking his legs about as he always did whenever Kakashi was near. Rei would receive a similar reception but never as enthusiastically as Kakashi would get. Rei smiled at the baby and finished his change and got up carrying Naruto in her arms as she went to greet Kakashi. Kakashi could hear Naruto as he came up the front steps of the porch. He smiled as the thought of what Naruto would be doing right about now. He didn't understand how the baby always knew when he was about to come home. But Naruto always did, and he always grew excited raising his arms wanting Kakashi to pick him up as soon as he saw him. Kakashi opened the door and walked in only to see Rei was holding Naruto at her side. Naruto sitting on her hip, while Rei's arm was wrapped securely around the little guy. "Welcome home," replied Rei happily. "Thank you, Rei." "Hi Naruto, were you a good baby for Rei?" Naruto was nodding his head quickly and then started to reach out with both arms wanting to go to Kakashi. "Here, place the bags on the floor. And I will give you Naruto, and then I'll grab the bags." "Thanks," Kakashi replied as he placed the bags down and reached for his little brother. As soon as Naruto was in Kakashi's arms, he placed his head on Kakashi's shoulder. Kakashi had placed Naruto the same way as Rei had done, having Naruto sitting on his hip. Both of Kakashi's arms were securely wrapped around Naruto. They all headed for the kitchen. Once there, Rei took it upon herself to put the food away as Kakashi sat at the table facing away from it so Naruto could now sit on his lap. But it didn't take long before Naruto wanted to stand up. He was using Kakashi's shirt as a means to pull himself up. At the same time, Naruto was trying to get his legs under him so he could stand. Kakashi, seeing what Naruto wanted, helped by grabbing underneath Naruto's arms and lifting him into a standing position. Naruto immediately straightened out his legs and stood in Kakashi's lap. "Hey, little man, what are you doing, huh?" Kakashi asked as he leaned in, touching his forehead against Naruto's. Naruto reached up with both hands and caressed Kakashi's face. But the mask made for a strange feel to his little hands and he tried then to grab and pull down Kakashi's mask. Kakashi reached up to stop Naruto, while patiently saying to the child, "Wait, Naruto, I'll take it off soon. I promise." Kakashi always took his mask off when at home, and Naruto liked it when the mask was off. He didn't like Kakashi hiding his face. Naruto placed his arms around Kakashi's neck and laid his head back on Kakashi's shoulder. "Ha ha ha, he is really cute," replied Rei, as she had just turned back to them after filling the cupboards with the remainder of the items from shopping. "Yeah, he is," Kakashi said adoringly, but then turned and looked at Rei with a thoughtful expression. "Rei, have you heard anything about Naruto on the streets?" Rei, took on a pensive look as she tried to remember if anyone she had been around said anything about the baby. No, now that you mention it. I haven't heard anything for a while now. That's weird. I guess people are too busy gossiping about the Uchiha right now to care much. Maybe. Anyway, thanks for watching Naruto for me, Ray. You're always welcome. Ray smiled warmly at Kakashi. Well, I better get going. You two are going to be okay for the night, right? Yeah, we'll be fine. Have a good evening, Ray. You too. And with that, Ray grabbed her messenger bag and headed for the door. As soon as she was out the door and off the porch, Kakashi went and checked the door to make sure it was locked. And as promised, he pulled his mask down under his chin. Naruto was happy to finally see his big brother's face. He hated Peekaboo after all. Ray's return over a day later made Kakashi suspicious of her. Not since they first met had Kakashi felt like he needed to be on his guard. Back then it was invalid, but today it was another story. Something was up with her, he knew. But he didn't know if that was something that had to do with them or if she was having difficulties at home or with perhaps a neighbor. He wasn't sure, and he didn't want to trigger her if this was something that had to do with Naruto and himself. She was smiling at them, but her smile was off. She was upset but trying to hide it and was overcompensating for everything she said or did. When Kakashi asked what was wrong, Ray said that it was nothing to do with him or Naruto. She just had an argument with her husband over how their oldest child should be trained. He would soon be going to the academy, and her husband wanted the boy to learn a few simple things now so he would have a head start on the other kids. She said that it could wait till the boy was in the academy. Instead, they should just let him play and be just a child, before he has to study and apply himself nearly all the time to training. The reason she had given him sounded like it was the truth. But Kakashi's gut instincts weren't buying it. Whatever it was, Kakashi decided that he would go and train like he had planned to do. However, the plan would be modified. He would leave a couple of his ninkin behind to keep an eye on Ray and Naruto. He told her that 2 of his dogs weren't well and that they are staying at the house, but not to worry, that they wouldn't be underfoot and are well trained. Ray seemed okay with this, and Kakashi went out the door for his training. He stayed close by though. Yuhei and Garuko stayed behind at the house and watched Ray carefully. They made sure not be obvious about it though. They didn't want to spook their target. Kakashi had told them that something was going to happen. Ray was not to be trusted and to stay close to Naruto. Outside were the rest of his pack. They took up positions in the perimeter to keep watch as well. Nothing happened for the first 30 minutes that Ray had arrived. But soon the dogs outside sensed chakra and the scent of men, and they were headed for the house. Inside the house, Ray had just finished feeding Naruto and was preparing to put him on the couch next to her for a nap. As soon as she had placed Naruto down, she sensed her husband Chakra amongst many more. Both of the dogs in the house were now up, and the hair on their backs was up as well. Naruto began to cry. "What have you done?" Yuhei shouted angrily. "Nothing. I did nothing." A terrified Ray cried back. In that instance, the ninkin outside could be heard fighting the men that had come. Ray had made to grab Naruto with the intentions of escaping out the back of the house. But Garuko stopped her. "You aren't taking this baby anywhere, traitor." "No, you are wrong," a desperate Ray shouted back. The traps that Kakashi had set were now going off, and the screams of ninja could be heard. The next instant the front door was blown off its hinges and shinobi poured in. Ray ran and put herself between them and the baby and took a defensive stance. "No one is going to harm this baby," she hissed as her chakra began to swell within her. "Honey, don't do this." It was Tomoya now standing in front of the group pleading with his wife. "Don't you see this is for the best? This child will only bring harm to us all if we allow it to live." "You're a fine one to talk, Tomoya. What happened to these children need the support of the adults of this village, huh?" Ray all but screamed out at her husband. She was angry and ashamed. She didn't see that it would come to this, and now that it had, she couldn't stop kicking herself for letting this happen. "Please, hun, understand." Tomoya made a move towards his wife in a placating gesture, and while Ray was distracted, 2 more ninja came from the back of the house. Garuko and Yuhei attacked them instantly. Tomoya went for his wife, and 3 others went and grabbed Naruto and was out the door while Ray's husband and the remaining 3 men attacked her. Kakashi was practicing his Chidori when Pakun showed up. One look at him and Kakashi was off in an instant. He was only a half-mile away from home, and he covered the distance in no time. Yuhei came out the door. Blood was matted in his fur as the dog ran up quickly and shouted for Kakashi to head for the training ground number 5. Kakashi never stopped but continued towards the grounds. Pakun was right with him. Kakashi looked at his littlest Ninkin and Pakun knew what he had to do. He split from Kakashi and headed for Hokage Tower. Kakashi began to speed up even more. His killer intent was at an all-time high. There would be nothing left of the people responsible for this outrage. The civilians who had paid the shinobi to bring the demon child to a place where they could witness the death of the monster were excited at seeing the shinobi bringing the monster forward for execution. They had waited for this moment for so long. They would finally get revenge for their loved ones who died in the attack over 6 months ago. All of the people parted and made way as Genbu Satoshi made his way to the front of the crowd. Many people gave him hearty pats on his shoulders and back as he passed them. Once in front and center of the crowd, Genbu raised Naruto up by his right leg into the air. The child dangled helplessly and wailed in fear. The crowd yelled their pleasure at the sight. Soon they began to chant, "Kill the beast! Kill the demon child once and for all! Kill the beast!" Genbu smirked at the crowd and pulled a kunai out of his weapons pouch. As he prepared to give the crowd what they desired, Kakashi could hear the chanting. He could even make out what they were saying. It made his blood boil. There would be no forgiveness. As he neared the site, Kakashi saw Naruto dangling from a ninja's outstretched arm above his head. The ninja was starting to reach for something in his weapons pouch. Kakashi knew it was now or never. He ran to the right while Yuhei, and the others who had trailed after Kakashi took to the left swiftly. Timing was everything now. Kakashi leapt in the air with a bit of chakra in his feet. He rose above the crowd. Genbu had taken out the kunai and moved his left arm back preparing to drive it forward with the kunai. But another kunai struck Genbu dead between the eyes. His face frozen in a state of shock. He fell backwards as he let go of Naruto at the same time. Yuhei leapt for the child and caught him before he could hit the ground. Anbu had appeared only a few seconds after the strike, and quickly moved to restore order. Kakashi threw 4 shuriken at the crowd, but the weapons were successfully deflected away. An Anbu wearing tiger mask jumped in front of Kakashi and grabbed hold of him. Kakashi made no effort to escape. He knew he had crossed a line, but he was still furious. "Calm down, Kakashi," Tiger said soothingly. "Pull yourself together. The Hokage is on his way here and will arrive any moment. You don't want him to have to witness you killing civilians. It will do Naruto no good if you end up in prison forever." Tiger calmed Kakashi down with these words. "He's right," thought Kakashi. "I can't lose it here. The council would love to take Naruto away from me. And I know Danzo would make a destructive toy out of Naruto. If he ever got his hands on him. No, I have to stay level-headed for Naruto's sake." Kakashi sighed deeply and nodded his acknowledgement to Tiger. Yuhei trotted over with Naruto still dangling, but this time by his shirt crying. Kakashi knelt down swiftly and took the frightened child from Yuhei. Once again standing, Kakashi huddled Naruto close to him, checking him over for any signs of injury. He whispered soothing words in Naruto's ear, and gently rocked him. The baby slowly started to calm down. He now became aware of Kakashi's presence, and grabbed at Kakashi's shirt in his little fists. He laid his head on Kakashi's shoulder close to his neck softly crying. Kakashi was relieved with his little brother's responses. Kakashi didn't find any injury. Naruto was no worse for wear physically at least, but the child had been terribly shaken up by this incident. And Kakashi was feeling guilty already. He called for his pack and told them to head for home, that he would take care of them once he got there. The Hokage arrived and had the perpetrators arrested on the spot. The civilians were sent home for now. As soon as T and I were done interrogating the shinobi responsible for the kidnapping, the names of the civilians responsible would then be handed over to the police department for apprehending and judgment. Kakashi started to walk away with Naruto. He was sick of the scene before him and he just wanted to get his little brother safely away and home again. The Hokage saw Kakashi and called him over to him. Kakashi sighed but went over as bidden. "Kakashi, I wanted to tell you that all the ninja who attacked your place have all been collected as well. Your house isn't any worse for wear. Although, I have had to have the door repaired immediately. Also, all bodies have been recovered as well." "And Rei?" Kakashi couldn't help but ask. She was badly injured in the attack. Her husband is dead. Kakashi didn't say anything else. There wasn't anything he could say. He was still angry with the stupid villagers. He felt like they had betrayed the fourth Hokage, who, they claimed they loved. They didn't know that Naruto was his son. But it still didn't matter to Kakashi. To try and kill an infant was a cowardly act. No matter how they tried to justify it. He felt bad about Rei. Rei had come to help Kakashi out. And she hadn't done anything wrong. Kakashi felt guilty, but it wasn't his fault. It was her husband who decided to betray her and them. But there was nothing that could be done about it. All he wanted now was to get Naruto home. He needed to make sure his little brother knew that he was safe now. In the end, that's all that really matters to me, Kakashi thought. He shunned Shin out of the training grounds to the outskirts of the village. And began walking home with a million thoughts going through his mind. Over the next week, the interrogation unit was busy with the prisoners. Every prisoner was questioned. While some cooperated easily enough, others were the joy of the unit. As they were given permission to extract information from the prisoners with any means necessary. It soon became apparent who were all involved in the kidnapping. No one had the fortitude to stay strong against people itching to try new torture methods that were meant to cause mental and physical pain without death. By the end of the week, all of the prisoners had been questioned, processed, and in jail waiting for a hearing from the council. The information was sent directly to the Hokage. The third sat behind his desk reading the scroll with a major amount of disgust showing on his face. He read silently. The scroll reported the following. Genbu Satoshi was hired by Kakashi Shin, a wealthy businessman from the northern district. The businessman had lost his eldest son to the Kyuubi attack. He wanted revenge and closure and was willing to pay a handsome price to Genbu and his men. They were to kidnap the Jinchuriki, Naruto, and bring him to training ground number 5 by suggestion of Satoshi. He had it arranged so that the civilian could go to witness the death of the child. Other members of Shin's family had heard of the plot and wanted to be there as well. Genbu agreed to take the job, then set out to find a way to get to the child. He was successful in catching part of a conversation between Tomoya Sarahara and another man about the child. Genbu didn't like what Sarahara was saying and so decided to follow him. Sarahara led Genbu unknowingly back to his house. Where upon arrival, Rei, his wife, had just showed up from being away from home for a while. Tomoya had asked his wife if everything was going well and she had said yes. Genbu decided that he would keep the house under surveillance for a few days and see what happens. Rei had left every other day and went towards the outskirts of the village along its southern end. Genbu decided that she was going to where the child was and began tailing her. However, Rei caught on quickly and led Genbu around and away from the targeted house. She got him far enough away and then Genbu lost her. So Genbu went back to the Sarahara household to confront Tomoya. He threatened the man that he had to either learn of the location of the child and take him and his team there, or he could watch as Genbu and his team slaughtered his family. Tomoya chose to find out the location. It took over 2 weeks before he had found the child. Then Genbu and his team prepared for the extraction. During the meantime, other villagers besides Shin wanted to witness the execution. A total of 30 villagers would be present at Training Ground 5 on the designated day. Sarahara led the men to the child, but were met with strong resistance from the Guardian's Ninkin and also from the traps that the Guardian had set. Genbu had taken over 20 men with him as he knew that the Guardian, Kakashi, was of Anbu status. But he wasn't there though the Ninkin were. Rei refused to back down and fought her husband and the men who came with him inside the house. Tomoya lost his life in the fight, his wife killing him and 2 other men before being severely wounded. Genbu detected Kakashi coming quickly, and went and grabbed the child and made haste to retreat to the rendezvous site. The villagers along with Kakashi Shin were waiting when he arrived with the child. It had been decided early on that as soon as Genbu found the child and reported the day and time for Shin to come for the execution, the money would then be paid, as Shin did not want anyone witnessing the transaction between Genbu and himself. The Hokage threw the scroll down on his desk in anger. He knew that the council will try to gain leniency for the idiot. Not to mention, the Shin family will try to buy influence with the council members. He will have to pull out the stops on this one to ensure that this sort of thing doesn't happen again. He also needed to make sure that none of the remaining ninja that went with Genbu will remember where Kakashi's house is located. Inochi would be needed for this delicate job. The Hokage called in one of the Anbu guard. Ram came in quickly and stood before the Hokage. Ram, I want you to bring Inochi here immediately. Also bring an elder Shikaku as well. Yes, sir. And with that Ram was gone in a puff of smoke. Kakashi had taken Naruto with him as he made his way to the hospital. Leaving the baby behind wasn't an option. And he knew that Rei would want to see Naruto anyway. He didn't feel comfortable with taking Naruto out into the village. Kakashi knew that everyone responsible for the kidnapping were now in prison. Yet he continued to feel a strong need to stay close to home. Going anywhere away from their sanctuary made Kakashi feel anxious. It has been over 3 weeks since the kidnapping. Kakashi never went anywhere that Naruto wasn't with him. And if going somewhere meant leaving Naruto behind, then Kakashi didn't go. A lot has been going through Kakashi's mind since that incident. But now he was going to take the baby to see Rei. He had come to learn from the Hokage that Rei was innocent of any wrongdoing. He was relieved and yet sad as well. If he hadn't needed her, Rei's life would not have so drastically changed, and not for the better. Her injuries were bad, but not permanent. She had several puncture wounds and slashes over her body. She also had a concussion and a broken left arm. And 3 cracked ribs. The doctors said it would take up to 6 weeks before she made a complete recovery. In 2 weeks they would release her. Precaution was the word of the day whenever the doctor spoke about Rei. So here Kakashi was running along the rooftops of the buildings headed for the hospital on a late sunny morning in early spring to see her. When they arrived, Kakashi carefully and skillfully descended to the ground from the closest building. Then swiftly walked over to the hospital. Once inside, Kakashi went straight to the receptionist and asked for Rei's room number. The nurse at the counter looked at Kakashi with a bit of an annoyed look as she recognized him. Instinctively, Kakashi drew Naruto closer against his chest with one arm, while his hand reached up and cradled Naruto's head. He didn't want her to recognize the baby as well. Naruto sensed something was up and stayed very quiet and still. Ever since the incident, Naruto has become even more sensitive to Kakashi's moods. And right now, with Kakashi holding him even closer, he knew this to mean to stay quiet. The nurse acted as if she wouldn't give Kakashi Rei's room number. Worse, he thought that he and Naruto were about to be thrown out of the hospital. But after only a few seconds, which felt like minutes to Kakashi, she spoke. The room is on the 2nd floor. Door number 210. She hissed. Thanks. Kakashi muttered and began to leave when the nurse said something else. Why are you carrying a baby? I hope that kid isn't yours. You'll just kill it in the end. You and your father never did understand what was important. Kakashi wanted to leap over the counter after her, but knew he couldn't. Tiger's words came back to him immediately. And he couldn't give any of these lowlifes the opportunity to tear Naruto away from him. So instead he replied calmly but with anger in his voice. You should be more careful of what you speak. We aren't what you think we are. The nurse didn't say anything more to him. The look in his eye and the tone was enough to keep her from saying anything else that she shouldn't. Kakashi stepped away from the counter and headed for the staircase. He silently cursed himself for not remembering to henge before coming into the village. But if he were honest with himself, Kakashi was distracted by not only the events that have taken place over these past 2 weeks, but Kakashi's past was also starting to echo back to him. He didn't want to think of it ever, but it would always return at the most unexpected of times to remind him of his failures. Remind him of the people and things he lost. Kakashi snapped out of his thoughts when he felt something tugging at his mask. Naruto was busying himself by trying to once again remove Kakashi's mask. The little guy had one hand with his fingers wrapping onto the fabric that he hated so much, and with a determined look on his face was pulling away at it. Kakashi found himself laughing at his little brother's antics. Hey, little man, Kakashi said with a chuckle. I know you don't like my mask, but you're going to have to get used to seeing me like this when we're out. Okay? Naruto made a huffing sound but let go, only to try again a moment later. Once again Kakashi had to stop walking and pull his mask, which was partially down his face, back up. He never got angry with Naruto over this action. In some way it made Kakashi's heart beat with warmth. Naruto is the only one since his father to see Kakashi's face. No one else has ever seen it. And as far as Kakashi was concerned, that would always be the case. They finally made it to the 2nd floor. Kakashi went and opened the door and stepped into the corridor. Naruto had settled down now. Realizing that he wasn't going to get that awful thing off of his big brother's face, he decided to look around and see where they were going instead. Kakashi walked down the corridor, and just before they got to the corner and needed to make a right, there stood door 210 in bolded numbers. Kakashi knocked before entering. Rei was awake, but she wasn't alone. Her mother and Rei's 3 children were also there. Kakashi panicked inside. He didn't want this to turn into a war of words or an actual battle. He wasn't sure if he should go in further or just bail out and make a run for it. Rei looked over at the 2 boys and felt a tear start to come to the corner of her eye. They both looked so abandoned and vulnerable standing there. She wished she could take them in and care for them as part of her family. But that wasn't possible, not now. She looked over at her mother. The woman was staring at the boys with an unreadable look on her face. The children didn't know or care who the newcomers were. But Rei knew that this wasn't the time for these 2 groups to meet, if ever. So clearing her throat loudly to get her mother's attention, she spoke. "Mother, please take the children to the cafeteria for 30 minutes for me." "Are you sure, honey? Aren't these the children that—" "I know who they are, mother," Rei shouted back. "But Rei, you can't expect me to leave you here with these 2 monsters." Rei's mother was also shouting. She couldn't believe her daughter would still want to protect these animals after what had happened to her own family. And all because of them. The way Rei's mother saw it, the 2 boys should be left to fend for themselves or just die. It wouldn't be a loss to Konoha either way. "Honey," she tried again softly, "you should just let me send them away. Nothing good will come." "No, you listen, mother." Rei's tone was harsh. "These 2 haven't done anything to deserve the treatment they have received." Kakashi didn't take the mission that turned out to be a failure in the eyes of the village. He was here when it happened. But people immediately blamed him along with his father as if he had gone too. And all the things that has happened after that, the village more or less could be blamed for it. Kakashi is just trying to live here and serve his village like any honorable shinobi would do. As for Naruto, he saved this village. Whether people want to believe it or not, these boys don't deserve the scorn and the mistreatment that they continuously receive. So don't you dare call either of them monsters. It became deathly quiet in the room. Rei's children sat with wide eyes as they had never seen their mother scold their grandmother before. And being at the ages of 5, 3, and 2 years, they couldn't understand what was being said. Kakashi stood near the door. He held Naruto as close as possible, ready to bolt out at any moment to get his little brother to safety. Naruto remained quiet. He pulled himself as close as his little arms could bring him to his big brother. His face was buried in the side of Kakashi's neck, a position Naruto took whenever there was tension in the air. Rei's mother looked first at her daughter with disbelief and then at Kakashi with an angry expression the next instant. She shook her head and looked back at Rei. "Alright Rei, I'll let this drop for now." As if she was consoling a child. "But this conversation isn't over." "No, not by a long shot." Rei sighed exasperatedly at her mother, then spoke to her pleadingly. "Please, please, just take the children to the cafeteria and get them a snack. They haven't had lunch yet, right? So please do this for me." Rei kept her tears from falling even as she pleaded with her mother. Her mother looked at her for a moment. Then she gathered the children and left without saying a word. Kakashi moved quickly out of their way as they went out. The door was closed quietly behind them. "I'm sorry, Kakashi," Rei said as she watched them. When Kakashi made no move to go closer, Rei spoke again soothingly to him. "Hey, it's okay now. I'm happy that you both came to see me. Please come and have a seat. My mother won't be back for 30 minutes and I need to talk to you." "Please?" Kakashi looked at her searchingly. It was habit now. When it came to situations as what had just happened, Kakashi couldn't help but let his instincts guide him. He knew Rei wasn't dangerous to them, but he still needed to see it in her eyes, posture and tone before he would move. Finally, after a few moments, Kakashi made his way over to the chair beside the bed and sat down, placing Naruto in his lap sitting up. "Thank you." Rei sounded relieved. "I want you to know that I have never believed the lies and other nonsense that the village has spoken about you, Kakashi. You are too kind-hearted and loyal to be the things that the villagers accuse you of." "Thank you, Rei," Kakashi muttered softly. He was looking at Naruto instead of her. Rei looked at them and asked, "Would it be okay if I got to hold Naruto a little bit?" "Yeah, sure," Kakashi replied and went to lift Naruto and place him in Rei's arms. But Naruto took one look at Rei and whimpered and clung tightly to Kakashi. once again burying his face in Kakashi's neck. Kakashi tried again. "Hey, little bro, it's okay. It's Rei, don't you want to see Rei?" Naruto looked again over at Rei but made no move to go to her. Whenever Naruto looked at Rei, he could only see the danger of what happened earlier. He couldn't distinguish that the bad things weren't Rei's doing, only that they happened when Rei was there. Rei swallowed the lump in her throat. Not so long ago this infant would greet her with smiles and reaching out to her with open arms. Now she could see his mistrust and fear. She sighed. "It's okay, Kakashi. I understand. I'm sorry, Rei." Kakashi felt bad. He didn't know how to right the wrong here. No, it's for the best that he is reacting this way. "What do you mean? You saw my mother's reaction, right? Unfortunately, she isn't the only family member who feels this way. Some of them are already talking of taking my 3 little ones away from me. If I continue to come out and help you." She could see even with the mask that Kakashi's face hid a scowl there. "Yeah, I can't keep you with us forever." Kakashi spoke softly. "I do appreciate all that you have done for the two of us, Rei. But I knew it was a lot to ask anyone and yet I didn't know anything about raising a baby. I needed your help and so I was selfish about it, knowing the danger it would bring you and your family. I'm sorry. Kakashi, please don't apologize to me over this. You did nothing wrong. This whole situation was brought on because of someone else wanting the village to burn to the ground. The fourth did what he could to protect it. And that's why when the Hokage came to me and asked if I would come and teach you how to care for Naruto and give you rest when you needed it, I jumped at the chance. It was my way of saying thank you to the fourth for saving us. But now seeing how the village reacted, I'm so ashamed of them. I'm also sorry for my husband's involvement in their foolishness. Your husband was only trying to protect his family. I really can't blame him anymore once Hokage-sama told me why he was involved. Honestly, Rei, I don't think I would have reacted much different. You don't have to say that, Kakashi. We both know that my husband panicked. There were other options. It never should have went down the way it did. Still, I loved Tomoya. He panicked because he knew how the villagers felt as well as I. They would have persecuted our family and called us traitors for continuing to care for the two of you. He was scared for us. So, I forgive him." Rei had tears welling up in her eyes again. And Kakashi decided that he would say the words for her that needed to be said since the moment he and Naruto had first arrived. Spoken in tenderness, Kakashi began. "Rei, I want you to know that Naruto and I were happy to have you with us. But it's time for you to move on without us. You have your own 3 little ones. 3 small kids who don't have their dad anymore. I can manage with Naruto on my own now. You have given me everything that I need to make sure that my little brother survives, and not only that but to thrive as well. I want you to take care of your kids and continue to give them the love that you gave us. Don't worry about us. We will be fine thanks to you. Maybe I can come over sometime. Now and then just to see how you two are doing?" Rei asked hopeful. "I'm sorry, Rei. I really think it would be best if we all moved on. You said it yourself, your mother and other family members are talking of taking away your kids. If you continue to come out to us. No, this is for the best. I'm sure we'll see you at the park sometime though. Naruto won't be an infant forever. So I will be taking him to some of the parks. And we do live in the same village, so I'm sure we will run into each other somewhere out there." Kakashi tried to sound cheerful and hopeful for Rei's sake. But he knew the truth. They both did. "Okay, you're right, Kakashi. We do live in the same village. So we will see each other again. Soon, I hope." This was said with a small smile on her face. "Hey, we better go now. The 30 minutes is just about up." "Yeah." Kakashi reached over with his left hand and held and squeezed Rei's gently. Rei squeezed back. And with that Kakashi stood up. He looked at Naruto, who now had his head up and looking at Rei. Kakashi grabbed hold of Naruto's right arm in his left hand and made waving motions saying, "Naruto, wave bye-bye to Rei." Naruto waved his arm in a jerky motion. Then he smiled when Rei waved back. Then the two boys went across the room and out the door, closing it gently on their way out. Rei watched them go while tears fell down her face. I failed them. It was all Rei could think of at that moment. Kakashi left the hospital quickly. And as soon as he was outside, Kakashi shunned Shin again to the outskirts. Heading home as swiftly as possible, he wanted to just relax with his little brother and forget about the rest of the world for a while. Upon arrival they went inside and Kakashi walked towards the breakfast nook. He placed Naruto in the high chair that was left beside the table. Once Naruto was secure in his high chair, Kakashi then went over to the refrigerator and got out the things he would need to make lunch. He decided on a light lunch made of a tuna salad sandwich and mango slices. Naruto was getting creamed chicken and sweet potato, and for dessert some strained peaches. When everything was prepared and ready, Kakashi brought it all back to the breakfast nook and moved Naruto's high chair a little closer. Naruto at the moment wasn't happy. He kept trying to reach for his big brother's face. After a couple of times, Kakashi realized why this was happening. Instead of Naruto focusing on getting the food, Kakashi was trying to give him into his mouth. "Sorry, little brother. My mind is distracted today," Kakashi said between a chuckle. He leaned over towards Naruto, and immediately Naruto latched on with both of his hands and pulled the hated mask down. Kakashi helped him as Naruto couldn't get it all the way down under his chin. "Wow, I'm distracted" is an understatement, Kakashi thought. If Naruto wouldn't have been making a fuss, I would have tried to shove the sandwich into my mouth with the mask on. "It's official. I'm losing it," Kakashi sighed. Naruto looked at his big brother and reached out his hand to caress his brother's face. "Kaka," he spoke happily. "Yes, little bro, it's me. Hey, how about a big bite of creamed chicken?" Naruto nodded eagerly and Kakashi brought the spoon to his mouth. Then Kakashi reached with his other hand and grabbed the tuna salad off his plate and took a bite himself. They ate their meal in peace. Naruto would squeal and wave his arms around. Kakashi gave him the baby spoon to let Naruto learn how to hold it. This ended with the both of them having baby food in their hair and on them. Kakashi couldn't help but laugh, and this made Naruto laugh as well. They finished up and then Kakashi took Naruto to the bathroom. They needed a shower. Afterwards, Kakashi placed a diaper on Naruto and placed him on the bed while he got dressed, but keeping an eye on his brother. Naruto could move around pretty well since Pakun took it upon himself to teach the baby how to crawl. Kakashi was laughing so hard at Pakun as the little dog got down on his belly with his legs well under him next to Naruto and started dragging himself on his belly and paws across the floor. It only took Naruto a few minutes before he was crawling happily after the pug. The memory brought out a smile on Kakashi's face. Naruto had such a determined look on his face as he tried to do as Pakun. And the look of pure joy when he had accomplished the task made Kakashi's heart swell with pride and joy. "It's these little moments that I find I live for anymore. The very reason I don't just call it quits and shove a blade in my gut. It's all because of you, Naruto. Sensei, you knew, didn't you? You and Kushina both knew what was going on inside of me. Even when I didn't have a clue." This brought a tear to Kakashi's eye. It was at that moment that he realized just how much they loved him. Naruto, ever aware of the emotions of the people around him, stopped his playing on the bed to look up at his big brother. Immediately he got off his bum and started crawling towards the corner edge of the bed. Kakashi also moved forward as he feared Naruto would crawl right off the edge. He moved swiftly before his little brother could get there, and reached for him, bringing Naruto up and into his arms. "Hey, little man, be careful, will ya? You almost nosedived on me there." A relieved Kakashi spoke. Naruto ignored the warning as he seemed to look over his big brother for the thing that caused the hurt. "Kaka," a mournful Naruto replied. Something caused a hurt, but Naruto couldn't see what it was. He began to whimper. "What's the matter, Naruto?" Kakashi didn't know what had upset his brother. But quickly enough the answer was known. For Naruto reached up and wiped a tear that had streamed down to Kakashi's chin. Realizing again that Naruto was reacting to him because of the memory of their parents, he quickly tried to soothe his little brother. "Hey, little bro, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you upset." Kakashi swayed from one foot to the other as he continued to speak soothingly to Naruto. Feeling reassured that everything was okay, Naruto was ready to go back to playing again. Kakashi was finished dressing. He put on a pair of boxers and decided that that was all the clothing he would be wearing for now. There was only the two of them living there after all, so he moved Naruto to his left side, his left arm wrapped securely around his brother, while Naruto's legs immediately wrapped around Kakashi's side like little ones will do when carried that way. His right arm was resting against Kakashi's left arm with his hand on Kakashi's shoulder. The other arm was dangling beside him. Kakashi went over to the bed to grab Naruto's fox plushie, Naruto's favorite toy, and headed back downstairs to the playroom. As soon as they entered, Kakashi placed Naruto down and watched his little chibi crawl swiftly about the room. Kakashi placed the fox plushie on the carpet and went over to his desk, which was in the right corner of the room. The room was meant to be either a study or a playroom. But Kakashi thought it best to just combine the ideas instead. This way his little brother could still have a room to play in and where all his toys were kept except for the fox plushie, which went wherever Naruto went most of the time, while at the same time he could work on his reports once he was back to doing missions, and still be able to watch Naruto at the same time. The room was a sky blue color and contained a crib that was placed in the furthest corner to the right of the room. A changing table was next to it, and across from the right corner was a toy box situated in the left. A medium-sized window was on the wall in between the crib and the toy box. The center of the room was intentionally left without furniture. This, for obvious reasons, was to maximize play on a charcoal gray thick carpet. Kakashi sat in the comfortable leather chair and turned so he could watch his brother for a few more moments. There were already a few toys out of the box from an earlier playtime. Kakashi reminded himself that the toys would all have to be picked up and put back in the box before bed that evening. Naruto made his way to some soft foam-covered blocks and began to play. Kakashi smiled at his brother and then turned to his desk. There was a scroll on the desktop that Kakashi opened and began writing in. It was a journal of Naruto's progress, how he was developing, his changing sleeping habits, and his developing personality traits. Each day was dated and Kakashi could watch how his little brother was doing. If anything happened that was unusual and they needed medical assistance, this journal would provide the doctors what Naruto's daily habits and development has been. They spent the afternoon in the playroom. Kakashi finished in the journal and then was busy writing up a new training schedule for himself. Now that he would have Naruto with him all the time, Kakashi needed to revise his existing schedule to include him. Kakashi decided that he would need to get his ninkin to help him with watching Naruto while Kakashi trained so that the chibi wouldn't crawl himself into harm's way. Kakashi would also have to carry a few extra things for Naruto. A thick blanket and a few toys, as well as his bottle and a couple of diapers, which meant that Kakashi would have to take a time out himself in order to take care of Naruto's needs. There would be no way around this, but it was okay. Still, it bothered Kakashi a little to have to bring Naruto with him to training. The reason being that he didn't want Naruto being influenced so soon about being a ninja. Being that Kakashi was never given a choice of what he wanted to be in life. Kakashi remembered the things he had to do for his village that robbed him of ever being a child again. This is why Kakashi questioned the way he was raised. He wondered if it was truly the right way to raise Naruto. He knew part of what pushed him along so far and so fast was the Third Great Ninja War. It forced his generation to grow up way too soon. And if Kakashi was to say so himself, they all have suffered for it. But now there was no choice in the matter either. Kakashi could leave Naruto with the ninkin. The dogs were certainly capable enough to take care of the baby for a couple of hours. But after what had happened, Kakashi was extremely reluctant to do this again. His protective instincts were having none of that, urging him to keep Naruto close. Rei had never shown herself untrustworthy. The Hokage chose well. Still, who else could be asked? Who could help out without suffering for even trying to be there? Kakashi stopped thinking about it and finished his new schedule and closed up the scroll. Looking over to his brother, Kakashi saw Naruto was getting a little restless with his toys. He was now crawling over to Kakashi. Kakashi decided it was time for his little brother to have his nap. He got up and met Naruto halfway across the room, then leaned over and picked him up and kissed his forehead. The two headed back upstairs. Naruto didn't fight taking his nap. He was asleep only moments as Kakashi laid him down on top of his chest as Kakashi lay stretched out across the bed. It wasn't long after Kakashi joined his little brother in sleep. 2 hours had passed and not without incident. Kakashi had woke him and Naruto rather abruptly. Naruto was clinging to his big brother tightly. And it had been what made Kakashi wake up due to the pain he was in. Kakashi had been having a nightmare. It wasn't the most violent fortunately, but it was still causing Kakashi to stir in his sleep. Somewhere in the back of his mind he remembered that Naruto was lying on top of him. So his thrashing about had been tame compared to what it would have been normally. Still, Naruto was waken up by it and was trying his best to stay put. Kakashi hadn't worn a shirt to bed. So Naruto could only try and grab onto Kakashi's skin and flesh of his chest. After a few minutes of this, Naruto started to whimper as he watched his brother. Finally, Kakashi registered the pain in his chest as if something was trying to pinch or grab him. Then he felt the weight on his chest and remembered Naruto. Kakashi was up in an instant. His mismatched eyes looked into deep blues that were looking at him with a worried expression. "Sorry, little bro, I didn't mean to worry you." Naruto had let go of Kakashi as soon as his eyes opened. He reached up and touched his big brother's face for reassurance that everything was okay. Kakashi kissed his hand and got them in an upright position. Now sitting up, Kakashi placed Naruto on his lap sitting. In the next instant, both boys' stomachs made a loud noise. "Well, I think that's our cue to go eat," chuckled Kakashi. Then he rose from the bed and headed downstairs to the kitchen. Naruto was placed in his high chair with his little plushy fox. Then Kakashi went and began preparing their meals. Once done, the boys ate and Kakashi decided that when they were finished they would go out. "Naruto, would you like to go outside?" Naruto looked up at the mention of his name. And at hearing the word, outside, Naruto was giggling and squealing with delight. "Well, I guess that answers that then. How about having the Ninken go with us?" This got another squeal of approval. "Then it's decided," Kakashi said, smiling at his little brother. They finished quickly their meals. Kakashi put away the dishes in the sink for cleaning later. Then grabbed Naruto and both went upstairs to get dressed. Once both were properly attired, Kakashi brought them both back downstairs. He grabbed his keys and out the door they went. As soon as they got outside, Kakashi did his summon for his dogs. "Hey, boss, what's up?" replied Pakun. "We're going to go and explore the backyard. Naruto hasn't been out here yet. I wanted to let him see it and play out here a little, and I thought you guys would like to come with us. And also to help me keep an eye on him." "Will do, boss. The pup is growing on all of us," Pakun said, then shook himself. "He is fast becoming part of the pack." "That's good to hear, Pakun. I was hoping you guys would take to him sooner than later," Kakashi said as he had now let Naruto down in the grass. Both human and dogs watched as Naruto got to touch grass for the first time. Naruto was on all fours and looking intently at the green spiky stuff under him. He wasn't sure what to make of it, so he pulled on it first. When a few blades came up in his hand, he looked at it and then went to shove the blades in his mouth. Kakashi laughed even as he reached down and grabbed his little chibi's wrist to remove the grass. "No, Naruto, it's not meant to go in your mouth. You can play on it, run on it, you can even sleep on it, but you never eat it." Naruto looked up at his brother with a smile and a giggle. Once Kakashi let him go, Naruto waved his arms up down a few times, then looked over and saw Bull. Immediately Naruto was crawling over towards the huge mastiff. Bull wagged his tail and lowered his head to give the baby a doggy kiss on his forehead. The movement was gentle, but it still managed Bull over Naruto. The baby was far from frightened or annoyed. He simply rolled back over and crawled till he felt close enough and sat on his rear. Bull lay beside him and allowed the baby to pet him. They stayed out in the yard for half an hour before they went for a walk in the forest. And as the sun was starting to set, they made their way back to the house again. Everyone went inside and relaxed in the living room for a while. Before long it was time for bed. The Ninken stayed with them that night. Kakashi had given Naruto his bath and a bottle before he was soon asleep. Kakashi placed him into his bassinet and covered him, then went downstairs to do the dishes from supper. As he washed the dishes, Kakashi's mind wandered off, and it didn't take long before he was thinking about the time he would have to return to active duty. The Hokage had told Kakashi that he would be off until Naruto was 2 years old. He had told Kakashi that by then Naruto would be a toddler that would be able to eat solids, and though he would still be in a diaper. The Hokage had a few trusted people that knew how to babysit a toddler. Kakashi wasn't sure how he felt about that. He wanted to return to active duty. Being a ninja was what Kakashi knew how to be. "How could I do anything else?" he thought. "I don't think the village would let me be anything else. And I need to provide for us somehow. But then again, would I even consider doing anything else? Why do I do what I do?" Kakashi placed the last dish in cabinet as he thought. "I have to admit that I like being able to protect the village. Even though the village doesn't like either of us, it is still our home too. If I were still on my own and Sensei hadn't included me in his family, I think that then I could just go and leave this place behind." But Sensei didn't turn his back on me, neither he nor Kushina turned me away. They became my reason for not leaving the village or killing myself. Although, I had told myself that I wouldn't take that route. Father had left me alone. Alone in a hostile village to fend for myself. I couldn't understand it back then. I'm not sure I do now. There's a lot of things that I'm not sure about. But one thing I do know with certainty is that Sensei gave me a reason to live and to stay here. And I'll protect this village until Naruto, their son, my little brother, is old enough that if the villagers are still ignorant pricks by then, I will take my brother and go somewhere else. Kakashi left the kitchen and headed back up to his bedroom. Some of the Ninkin had stayed upstairs with Naruto. The rest stayed downstairs with Kakashi. Now they too were following Kakashi back upstairs to bed. Kakashi checked on Naruto before heading over to his own bed. Seeing that the baby was sleeping soundly, Kakashi made his way over and climbed into bed. Once the blankets were covering Kakashi, Pakun and Garuko climbed up on the bed. Pakun near Kakashi's side and Garuko was stretched out at Kakashi's feet. Soon all was asleep in the Hitaki house. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the village, while Kakashi had been thinking of what he and Naruto would do when Naruto got older. In the Hokage Tower, 3 people were gathered sitting in the Hokage's office. 2 of the people sat in front of the third's desk looking self-important. They were up in the years just as the third was, and like the third they were part of the governing body of Konoha. The man, Homura Mitokado, and the woman, Kaharu Utatane, had come to discuss something that had been annoying them for a while now. They wanted the third to explain his treatment of the traitor and the Jinchuriki. The third wasn't amused, to say the least. He wanted to get home and have a late supper, a shower, and to relax a bit before heading to bed. He did not want to listen to these 2 whine about 2 children that wasn't really any of their concern. So his mood was sour, and it came out a bit in his voice as he spoke with them. Saratobi, explain to us again why the traitor hasn't been returned to active duty yet. A displeased Homura asked. Saratobi snorted before he answered. It's interesting that you want to call Kakashi a traitor, yet you want him back to active duty so soon. You are contradicting yourself, my friend. Humph, he may show to everyone now that he is loyal. But it won't last forever. His father was loyal for years, but then he turned on us. It will only be a matter of time before the brat does as his father has done. Until then we will use him for the village's needs. Homura countered with a scoff. Anyway, answer our question, Saratobi. We have a right to know. Now it was a miffed Kaharu who spoke. Naruto isn't old enough to take care of himself yet. And unless either of you know a jutsu that can speed up the process of aging, I won't be assigning Kakashi anything new until then. The third sat comfortably still while giving an icy glare to the others. And even if you did, I would still not allow it. You do remember the fourth's wishes, do you not? Yes, but that doesn't mean that Hitaki can be out so long. 2 years is ridiculous, yelled Kaharu. Homura nodded his head in agreement. No, I think you're the ones being ridiculous here. I had sent Rei Sarahara over to help with the infant. But look how that turned out. If I send another, what will happen next? The infant should be placed in the orphanage until he is old enough to live on his own. I'm sure that the caretaker there would do so with enough compensation for her trouble. Yelled back Homura, raising his hands in the air as he finished his sentence. Saratobi's blood was boiling as he slammed his fist down on top of his desk before he spoke. There is no way in hell that I'm going to do that. He roared. The orphanage would never be able to adopt Naruto to a good home. And even if anyone did take him in, it would be just to torture or to kill the boy. The caretaker wouldn't allow it. Not if we told her she couldn't adopt Naruto out. She would be told that the boy would only be living there until he was 3 years old. Then we would have him set up in an apartment. Kaharu insisted. Let me get this straight. You two want to place a 3-year-old to live in an apartment? Alone? With no guidance or supervision? What the hell is wrong with you two? Saratobi was coming to the end of his tolerance for his former teammates. Their hatred for both children was starting to reach a new level, and it was all he could do not to throw the 2 of them out. Preferably through the window. We're not saying that the Jinchuriki wouldn't be taught anything. We would send someone over to show him how to use a hot plate and toaster oven. He would get an allowance at the beginning of the month and would be shown how to use the money wisely. Every other day or so someone would stop by and check up on him. And honestly, Saratobi, you know as well as we do that there are children out there in other villages that don't have parents and have even less than this monster is getting. Homura was still shouting and gesturing wildly. That's it. This discussion is over. You two will vacate my office before I have the guards come and throw you out. Naruto Uzumaki will stay with his legal guardian, Kakashi Hitaki, as stated in the guardianship papers and the wishes of the fourth. The three sat and glared at each other for a moment in silence. Then without word, Homura and Kaharu got up and left the office. Sarutobi let out a deep exhale of breath. He could remember when they were all much younger. They were so close back then. But over the years they had begun to split apart. And now for some reason they were getting increasingly more agitated over the new Jinchuriki. He couldn't understand why this was. They never acted up like this when Kushina was first brought to the village of Whirlpool to be made the new Jinchuriki. So what has changed? He sighed and got up to leave himself. And as he closed the door behind him, one thought went through his mind with resolution. He would see to it that the boys were never split up. Homura and Kaharu walked down the street heading to a small bar that was close by. Neither of them were happy with what they had learned this evening. And they knew that Danzo wasn't going to be pleased either once they told him of what was said. They entered the bar and sat down at a small table near the back of the establishment. A male server came over to them and asked what they wanted to drink. They decided on sake. The server went to get their order. Homura turned to Kaharu. His face showed that he wasn't ready to drop what had been discussed. Kaharu acknowledged with a nod of the head for him to begin. I think Sarutobi has a soft spot for the demon. I agree. Perhaps the demon is influencing our old friend somehow. I wouldn't doubt it. Homura saw the server returning and didn't say anything more. The man brought a bottle of sake and 2 cups on a tray. He placed the bottle and cups in front of them and bowed before leaving. What do you think we should do now? Asked Kaharu. We have to tell Danzo about this, that much I do know. He won't be pleased to say the least. Kaharu stared into her cup before she spoke. I agree with you. Those papers that Sarutobi spoke of should never have been given to the traitor in the first place. If it weren't for the other council members having such a bleeding heart for the fourth, this wouldn't be an issue now. Still, Danzo will figure something out. He wasn't as upset as I thought he would be when the decision was made known. He intends on getting his hands on the demon, for the purpose of using it as a weapon to defend Konoha. Honestly, I don't understand how he intends to do that, but I'm willing to support him in this undertaking. Then it is settled. Tomorrow we will ask for an audience with our friend and see what he has to say about all of this. Homura took a gulp of sake in one shot and poured himself another. Kaharu followed suit. As they continued to talk, the conversation went to other things that were happening in the village. Things that were spoken of but in cryptic style. No reason to give some of the darkest secrets of Konoha away to everyone. The next morning found Homura and Kaharu doing exactly what they promised themselves they would do. They sought the audience of their longtime friend and fellow shinobi, Danzo. The man granted them an immediate audience. The two were ushered into Danzo's office in his headquarters of Root. They sat down in the chairs placed in front of Danzo's desk. Danzo sat at his desk with his hands propped under his chin with his fingers intertwined together. While his elbows rested on both armrests of the chair, he looked at the 2 senior council members with an expectant expression on his face. You were right about Sarutobi. Homura began the conversation with a concerned look. Danzo snorted then smirked behind his folded hands. Is that so? Yes, he refused to hear either of us out. Kaharu spat the words out. She was still angry over the night's conversation. He's being a stubborn fool. Sometimes I wonder if he cares about the safety of the village at all. So, the talk with Sarutobi failed. I'm not surprised at this, and normally I would be more than a little upset right now. But the retrieving of the Jinchuriki can wait for the time being. At these words Homura and Kaharu looked at their comrade with alarmed and confused faces. What? Why? And exasperated Kaharu exclaimed. Because some other things are needed to fall into place before I can deal with the matter of the Jinchuriki. May I ask what things? Homura leaned forward a bit in his seat. As you already know, Madara has joined us. But that doesn't mean that he will remain loyal to our cause. I understand from spies we have sent that he plans on taking the Jinchuriki for himself. So before I can take the demon brat, I have to first get rid of Madara before then. Why not just take the demon now? If we obtain its power early on, then we don't need to worry about Madara and his little band of misfits. Replied Homura, now leaning back into his chair again. Ah, yes, but you see there are a couple of things that you're forgetting. One is that if either of us makes a move to retrieve the Jinchuriki, the other will know that the alliance made between us is a farce. And then that party would feel the need to retaliate for the betrayal. The ending result would leave both parties exposed to the rest of the shinobi world and leaving us equally weakened in the aftermath of the battle. Not to mention we would be easily captured if we chose to fight each other now. So neither can afford to make a grab for the demon just yet. We still need each other to fill in the gaps of each other's plans first. Danzo explained calmly. He wasn't feeling the need to panic like the other two. He knew what he was doing. Another thing is the traitor's brat, Kakashi. He has bonded rather strongly with the demon child. Any attempt to retrieve the demon would be met with violent action by Hitaki. His protective instinct is strong. And I'm not willing to send any of my men to deal with Hitaki just yet. Let him believe that he will have a family for a little while longer. In the end, he won't be able to stop what we have planned. And that brings us up to the last point of all of this. Sarutobi himself. I can just about bet that he will do everything he can to save the fourth child. The man had always been too sentimental for his own damn good. The fourth son no longer exists. He died the moment the demon took over his body. We believe that the demon is somehow influencing Sarutobi, replied a concerned Kaharu. What if the demon gains control of Sarutobi's mind completely and thus takes over the village? Your fears are not completely without merit. But that isn't likely, Kaharu. Homura reassured her. Yes, the demon isn't interested in harboring relations with the village citizens in any way. It only wants to do massive destruction and chaos. This much we can be confident won't happen here. We need only concern ourselves with the mission that we now have planned for so long. Homura, Kaharu, spoke Danzo with an air of authority. I want you two to continue to speak with Sarutobi. Continue to try persuading him to see things our way. And release the demon to us. But why, when we know that he will never change his mind on this matter? Asked Homura looking at Danzo, curiously. Because I want to keep up the pretense of it. If we take the demon by force as I've said, we will have a fight on our hands. Plus I don't want Sarutobi coming onto what I really have planned. But only speak on occasion, not all the time. I don't want him to get suspicious enough to send his Anbu in my direction just yet. And who knows, Sarutobi might even give in to your words given enough time. Very well, Danzo. We will continue to see him from time to time over this matter. Kaharu said as she let out a sigh. Good. Keep me informed as always. You're dismissed. Nearly 2 years has passed since the conversation between Danzo and the senior council members had taken place. In that amount of time all the lingering physical scars of the village ever being attacked by the Kyuubi was gone. The village was doing extremely well and had become the envy of the other hidden villages for their resilience against the attack. All of this didn't go unnoticed by Madara, as he watched the Leaf Village from afar. He would make stops out to the place to remind himself why he hated it so much and would bring the place down. He continued to keep in touch with Danzo. The man truly got on his nerves and Madara couldn't wait for the day when he would finally be free of him. Still, he had to keep up his little charade a little while longer. Madara had to be patient. He has waited a long time for his vengeance. And he wouldn't blow it now because he was impatient near the end. Kakashi stood near the edge of a cliff. He had grown in the nearly 2 years since the death of his sensei. Kakashi now stood at an even 6 foot tall. Everyone was surprised at the growth spurt he had. But with the height came muscles that were well toned and defined. And honed to lethal and nimble readiness. Kakashi's Anbu uniform was worn well. It showed that Kakashi had begun to lose his childhood looks and head for what he was meant to be. The wolf mask hid his face. But if seen, Kakashi's face would show the fine chiseled features of a young man. No longer would the rounded face of a child show behind the masks Kakashi wore. The only thing that hadn't changed at all was the silvery gray hair that sprung out all over the place atop the wolf mask. It looked something akin to a spiky bush on top, forever giving Kakashi that wild feral look. Interestingly enough, whenever Kakashi took off the mask or when it was a hiat that he removed, his hair would spill over his head and almost into his eyes. He has returned to active status in Anbu as of 3 months ago. His team, which consisted of bear, snake, and cat, were busy looking for clues of an enemy's presence. 2 days prior, when on patrol, Kakashi aka Wolf caught the scent of an intruder. He and his team pursued. But the scent disappeared not long after it was detected. Now Kakashi's team has been on hidden alert ever since, as have other teams once word was brought back by Kakashi. Now he stood on the cliff looking out over the land, his eyes searching intently to try to see their intruder. I remember this scent, he thought. I can't be certain of it yet, but I remember a scent that smelled like this back during the QB attack. If this is the case, then the intruder most likely is preparing to go round 2 with us. The questions are when? And how? Kakashi grimaced. The implications weren't pretty, and the knowledge of the intruder being the same person back then wasn't something that Kakashi wanted to think about. Still, this possibility would have to be shared with the Hokage. Kakashi turned around to face his team, who were now returning back to him. Bear was the first to arrive. Sir, I found nothing in the area that I searched. Bear sounded disappointed. Snake was next to appear. Ditto that, boss, replied Snake. Everything out here looks and is the way it's supposed to be. A sigh came from Snake, who also appeared to be disappointed at finding nothing. It was several minutes before Cat returned. But when he did, Captain, sir, I found what looks like the remains of a campsite. Where? Demanded Kakashi. Cat turned and pointed in the direction. It's about a half-mile straight ahead. Everyone, let's go, Kakashi commanded. The team took to the trees. Cat took the lead to show the team the way. No one bothered with conversation. Each individual was lost in his or her own thoughts as they swiftly covered the distance. Upon arrival, Cat leapt and touched down silently, followed by the others. The area at first glance didn't look disturbed, but as each member's eyes roved over the area, they began to see disturbances everywhere. The ground had been swept over with a thin leafy branch from one of the saplings that grew nearby. The telltale sign of this being the sapling itself. A branch was twisted and ripped until it tore away from the young tree. Many small rocks and stones had been moved out of a central area where the branch had been used later to sweep the ground to make it appear as if no one had been there. The rocks would have only been moved if bedrolls were placed there. The last obvious sign to the team was in the very center of the campsite, where the remains of what was once a campfire. Some ashes still remained and a few tiny pieces of burnt sticks lay in the soil. They weren't very tidy, were they? An amused Snake spoke as she knelt down at the once campfire. No, they certainly weren't. What a bunch of amateurs these guys were, replied Cat. Kakashi looked around as he spoke. I don't think these guys were novices at camouflage. I think they were spooked by someone or something. What makes you say that? Replied Bear. Because one of our teams was coming this direction. A knowing Kakashi answered. I heard Badger's team thought they sensed something this way and decided to go after it. The chakra they felt led them a good 5 miles away, and not in a straight line either. It was obvious that the group was trying to throw Badger's team off their tails. Well, there isn't anything much here. Shall we gather this bit of evidence and then haul ass back home and report? An eager Snake asked. Yes, replied a pensive Kakashi. He would love to stay longer. But his team's time was up. So it would be up to Crow's team to move forward with the investigation from here. Besides, Kakashi needed to get home to a 2-year-old blonde ball of sunshine and energy. There's no telling what his little chibi was into or what mischief he was causing his ninkin. The team left the site and headed home under warm late spring skies. Naruto was playing with Ninkin in the playroom. He was getting sleepy and needed his nap. But he knew his big brother was coming home soon. Thus his excitement was what was keeping him going. Garuko tried to get the chibi to take a nap, saying that he would be awakened when Kakashi came home. But Naruto wanted to stay up. He loved it when his brother came home. Kakashi was always so serious and guarded. But as soon as he saw Naruto, his face would soften and he would pull his mask down. And Naruto knew that he was the only one that ever got to see his big brother's face. He didn't understand why Kakashi wore one and why no one else was allowed to see Kakashi's face. But Naruto was glad that this aversion didn't apply when it came him. Naruto began to hum a small tune he had learned from his big brother some time ago. Kakashi would often sing to Naruto when he was still a baby. When Naruto was fussy and couldn't relax to go to sleep, he smiled as he remembered his big brother singing to him. Kakashi's voice was surprisingly melodic and soothing. I think someone just came home, replied Pakun. Nothing more needed to be said. Naruto was on his feet and rushing for the front door. The Ninkin were there with him when Kakashi opened the door. Coming inside, Kakashi looked to see that his little brother and his pack were standing there waiting. Kakashi drank the sight in. Naruto was now over 2 years of age. When he stood next to Kakashi, Naruto only came up to Kakashi's knees. His hair was even brighter blonde than his father's that spiked around his head. His eyes remained a deep blue like the ocean. He reminded Kakashi so much of Minato. The only difference were the 3 whisker-like marks on each cheek. Every time Kakashi looked at Naruto now, he was reminded of just how far they had come on this journey. How many times had Kakashi worried about doing everything that was needed for his brother and doing them right? How many times had he doubted himself along the way? But here they were after 2 years still going strong. Despite the odds. "Welcome, home," spoke an excited Naruto. Kakashi kneeled down and held his arms out for his little brother. "Hey, come here little man." Naruto was in his arms and hugging his big brother around the neck in an instant. "Me missed you, Kashi." Naruto bashfully replied. "I missed you too, little bro." Kakashi reached up and pulled his mask down. "Kashi, worked hard today?" "Yep, I sure did. I was busy trying to keep our village safe." "Me thinks that make Kashi tired." "Yeah, I guess it does a little bit." Kakashi chuckled. Then he lifted Naruto up and headed for the kitchen, the Ninken following them. "So, little man, what would you like for supper tonight?" asked Kakashi as he placed Naruto in high chair. "Kashi, tired. So me want to eat out. Me want to see village. Please." Kakashi stopped adjusting the table that attached to the high chair and froze. He knew the time would come, but he didn't think it would be this soon. Kakashi had been debating for a while now about whether or not he should continue to keep Naruto at home when he ran into the village to do errands or not. He always used a henge when he went alone. When Kakashi did take Naruto with him, it was when Naruto was still an infant. He was careful to henge them both before going in the village each time. But now Naruto was becoming more aware of things, and if he saw Kakashi disguise the two of them before they went into the village, he would want to know why. Naruto had already asked him about the reason for wearing a mask. And Kakashi told him that he couldn't explain it to him now, but maybe when Naruto was a little bit older. But this was different. This affected Naruto as well as himself. And Kakashi didn't think he had the right to hide the truth from his little brother. But at the same time, Kakashi didn't want to hurt his little brother either. How much could he tell him? Kakashi wasn't even sure how much Naruto would be able to understand at this point if Kakashi did tell him. What do I say to him? "Oh, well, see, Naruto, we have to disguise ourselves because the village hates our guts." "Yeah, that'll go over real well. Everyone knows now that Naruto is with me. But I know too that I can't run from this forever. At some point I'm going to have to face this whether I'm wanting to or not." Kakashi started to hook the tray onto the chair again. When he finished, he looked Naruto in the eyes and spoke softly. "Naruto, I promise that we will go to the village together soon. I'm just not ready yet. Okay? Me, do bad thing? Is Kashi mad at me?" asked Naruto mournfully. No, you didn't do anything wrong, Naruto. I just need a little more time, okay?" "Okay." Kakashi wiped the tear that fell from his little brother's left eye. And deep in his heart, Kakashi cursed himself for making his brother feel this way. He realized then that he needed help. He needed someone he could consult about their problem. And before walking over to the refrigerator, Kakashi had decided that once again he would need to see the Hokage first thing in the morning. The sun was beginning its climb in the sky. At the moment it was just over the horizon. Kakashi was already up, thanks to his little brother, who woke and immediately left his room and went to his big brother's. Naruto wasted no time pushing Kakashi's door open. Since Kakashi kept the door partially open so Naruto could come to him when he needed or if Kakashi heard Naruto having nightmares. Once inside, Naruto ran over to the bed and climbed up with some difficulty onto Kakashi's bed. But once there he crawled alongside until he was near Kakashi's head. Naruto gently patted Kakashi's face, and when that failed to wake his brother, he leaned over carefully and pushed open an eyelid. "Kashi, are you awake in there?" Kakashi tried and failed to keep the pretense up that he was sleeping any longer at those words. He had awakened as soon as he heard Naruto's footsteps hitting the floor. So he was faking sleep to see what his little brother would do. Now he was laughing and wrapped an arm around Naruto. "Yeah, little man, I'm up now." Naruto giggled and hugged his brother back. They stayed that way for a few moments before they heard Naruto's stomach growl loudly. This sent the two in another fit of giggles. Then Kakashi sat up in the bed. Naruto was positioned so he was sitting on Kakashi's lap. "Okay, little man, what would you like for breakfast today?" "Pancakes," exclaimed Naruto. "Okay, then pancakes it is." "Yay, but first we had to get a bath. Someone's diaper smells bad." Naruto looked up at Kakashi sheepishly before replying. "The poop came out." "That it did, little bro." "That it did." They both made their way off the bed and into Kakashi's bathroom. Once they had showered, Kakashi had gone for a towel to dry off Naruto, only to have him running around Kakashi's bedroom. Kakashi chased after him with Naruto squealing and trying to evade his brother. Finally Kakashi caught him and scooped him up into the towel. Naruto laughed and tried to get out of Kakashi's grasp, but Big Brother held him tight. Kakashi started walking to Naruto's room, all the while saying that he had caught a fish and giving Naruto raspberries on his belly, which had Naruto laughing even harder. When they got to Naruto's room, Kakashi placed Naruto on the bed and went to get him a diaper. "Hey, little man, I think it's about time for me to teach you how to use the toilet." "Potty?" asked Naruto with a slight tilt to his head. Kakashi had reached the cupboard where the diapers were kept, looked back to Naruto and replied, "Yes, you want to be a big boy now, don't you?" "Yes, well, big boys use the potty." Quote, "Me, don't want diaper. Me want to learn to use potty." "You should say, I don't want a diaper." Kakashi patiently said, "Okay, I don't want a diaper." "That's better, little man. Now then let me go and get dressed first. Then I'll get the potty and training pants that Grandpa Hokage got you." "Yes, I be a big boy now." Naruto raced back into the bathroom, while Kakashi went to get dressed, then proceeded to get the child's toilet and the training pants. Naruto learned quickly enough and Kakashi was pleased how well it went. But he had been told horror stories of children giving their caretakers a run for their money when it came down to actually using the toilet every single time when the child needed to go. Patience was key in this endeavor and Kakashi crossed his fingers and hoped for the best. Once the lesson was over and Naruto was now in training pants and dressed, Kakashi carried his little brother downstairs and once at the bottom, placed Naruto down and let him scurry off towards the kitchen. Breakfast was made and eaten and the dishes washed afterwards. Naruto wanted to help, so Kakashi set up a chair next to him at the sink and then placed Naruto on it. He gave Naruto a towel so he could dry. They finished the dishes and headed into the living room. Kakashi did a summon for his hounds, and in a puff of smoke 6 dogs appeared. "Okay, everyone listen up." Kakashi's voice now held a serious tone to it. "I need to make a run to the Hokage Tower. I shouldn't be more than an hour. So I want you all to stay in the house until I return. No going out. Did I make myself clear?" Everyone stood at attention, even Naruto, and said all at once, "Yes, alright then, Pakun. You're in charge while I'm gone." "Don't worry, boss. Everything will be as you leave it." "Good to know. Now I'm off." Kakashi leaned down and gave Naruto a hug. Then in a puff of smoke he was gone. Kakashi traveled swiftly through the trees. His mind was racing even faster as he thought of how he would approach the subject that he needed to speak about with the third. He was glad that today was his day off. He wouldn't have been able to speak to the Hokage about their current issue if he was out on duty. And he needed to keep his mind clear of anything else other than his duty at the time. Had Naruto asked his question about going into the village the morning he was getting ready for work, Kakashi knew he would have been distracted all day, and that could end up becoming dangerous for Kakashi's team as well as to himself. But what Naruto had asked had been something that made Kakashi not only think about and dread trying to explain to his little brother, but it also made him think of his own past experiences. He knew the villagers could really get crazy with their insistence of taking out their anger on others. It always amazed Kakashi how people would never question or try to understand a situation before they went all out for beating the supposed accused. The innocent until proven guilty never seems to apply with them, he sadly thought. They gainsay every fact and make fools out of themselves and their village. And more times than not it's the council that leads them on in it. Talking about the blind leading the blind here. But somehow someway, I have to make a change for Naruto and myself. It's as Rei said to her mother. We didn't do anything to deserve their hatred of us. I don't know how, but I'll find a way to change our lives so that they are better. So that people will at the very least leave us alone. Kakashi came out of his silent musing when his eye caught sight of the outskirts of the village. He didn't bother with doing a henge this time. He was here alone and on business with the Hokage. He didn't have his little brother with him now, so he didn't have to worry about his safety. Kakashi tried to walk down the street towards the tower. It had been a long time since he had done so. In fact, not since his father's disgrace had Kakashi walked down these streets. He didn't know why he was doing this. Maybe he needed to see if he could do it now, so that when he brought Naruto with him, Kakashi wouldn't look like a fool if he found he couldn't handle it. Then again, maybe he was doing this because he felt that he somehow deserved to be taunted and abused. He didn't know anymore. For years the village has told him he was nothing more than trash. Kakashi fought this for a while, but when his father had given up and committed suicide, he left his son to face the persecution alone. Kakashi began to think that maybe what was being said was true. Maybe his father was a coward. Maybe he really couldn't handle the pressure and abandoned the mission. He abandoned Kakashi, hadn't he? It's been a war in Kakashi's mind for so long, and losing the only people left that were precious to him did nothing but help this feeling of being trash. But for Naruto's sake, Kakashi knew he had to try to break out of this mind-numbing mindset he had lived in for so long. He was near the tower now. About another block and a half and he would be there. His senses stayed on heightened alert. Now only a block to go, he was almost there. A man in a full-length yukata standing just outside a restaurant happened to look away from a friend he was talking to. When Kakashi was beginning to make his way past them, instantly the man scowled and looking a bit sideways at his friend he gestured towards Kakashi. Well, if it isn't the scum of the village out on parade today. The man's friend laughed and decided to join in. Yeah, look at him. He must be trying to find his way to the freak show. Another villager spoke up. The freak should just go back into the woods where he came from. Kakashi said nothing and tried to move faster. But the villagers were just getting started. 3 of them jumped in front of Kakashi to try and block his way. Kakashi went around them. More villagers jumped in his way. Hey, where do you think you're going, freak? Spoke a villager with disgust. Nobody gave you permission to just walk away, you know. This coming from the largest of the newest group to block his path. Kakashi was starting to get angry. He could kill these people so easily and quickly. Yet here he was trying not to harm them. It was such an irony to him. He decided to cut his losses and just shun the remaining distance. He started to make the hand signs for the jutsu. As soon as Kakashi made the first sign, the large man in front grabbed his hands. Another swiftly moved from behind and swung his fist, hitting Kakashi in the back of the head. Everything after that happened in a blur. Kakashi was now fighting. He was only using taijutsu, but he was hammering them. People were screaming insults and trying to attack back. Others were just trying to get out of the way and get home. They had nothing to do with this in the first place and couldn't see how to stop it. A rowdy villager tried to get Kakashi from behind. Intent on using the newly bought shovel from the hardware store 2 doors down, he raised the shovel over his head, preparing to bring it down with as much force as possible. But Kakashi's fist was in his gut so fast and hard. The man's eyes looked like they were about to pop out of his head. And a loud rush of air left the man's lungs in the process. The shovel dropped from the man's hands as the man dropped to the ground. Another tried his luck only to meet Kakashi's foot as he had done a roundhouse kick to the villager's head. The man was out cold before he even hit the ground. Before things could get any more wild than they already were, a group of Junin showed up and began breaking up the fight. 2 managed to get close to Kakashi and seeing the wildness in his eye, one of them began to speak calmly to him. Hey, easy now, Kakashi. We're here to get you out of this mess. Take it easy now. It took Kakashi a moment to register that someone was speaking to him. He could hear angry yelling all around him. He stood in a battle stance, his arms up and bent at the elbow, while his hands were clenched into fists ready to strike. His breathing controlled and even showing that Kakashi hadn't even broken a sweat yet. His survival instincts were at their highest peak. Look at me, Kakashi. Kakashi looked at the man speaking to him. Good. Now I want you to take a deep breath in slowly and then exhale it slowly. Kakashi did as he was told, struggling to rein in his emotions. There, that's right. You're good now. The man was now showing him a small smile. His partner now took the opportunity to speak up. Hey, Kakashi, you showed us how's it done. You didn't kill any of the villagers, but you sure did give them what for. That's what I expect of my eternal rival. Guy. Yes, Asuma? Not now, please. You will cause him to start swinging again, this time at us. The Hokage wasn't amused by hearing of the events that took place in the streets of his village. He listened patiently as his son, Asuma, spoke of what he witnessed in the village. He was followed by Might Guy and Anko. The three gave a detailed report of the events. Every now and then, the third would look over in Kakashi's direction. For his part, Kakashi said nothing until asked, and then stated the facts with a stoic look. The Hokage sighed as the thought has now occurred to him that stronger measures would have to be taken to ensure that one of his finest shinobi can walk down the street in peace. To be honest, the third had never thought of it before, mainly because Kakashi has taken to the rooftops as a means of travel for such a long time. Then there is the small fact that so much has to be kept up with that sometimes things that aren't major are forgotten. The third wouldn't make this his excuse, but it is the truth nonetheless. Once Kakashi had finished his report of the events, the third, who had been smoking a pipe the whole time, put it out before placing it in the tray as he spoke. Thank you for your reports. You three are now dismissed. The third waved at Asuma, Anko, and Guy to leave. Kakashi, I want you to remain here, please. Kakashi only nodded and remained still. The others walked out and the door was closed behind them quietly. The third wasted no time speaking. Explain to me, Kakashi, again what happened. The third leaned forward in his seat a little. His arms rested on his desk, bent at the elbows, with his hands also bent under and supporting his chin. His expression showed a concerned look. I don't understand, sir. I have already explained what happened. Kakashi's voice held confusion in it. I understand what the villagers did. I want to know what happened with you. Why did you walk through the middle of town? For as long as I have known you, you have always traveled the rooftops unless it was a mission that forced you to go through the streets of Konoha. So I will ask again. What the hell happened? Kakashi didn't know what to say at first. He wasn't sure he knew the answer. But the Hokage didn't look like he wanted to hear that. No, he wanted to hear the truth, and the truth was, Naruto has asked if he could come and see the village. Ever since Sensei and Kushina gave him to me, I have tried my best to keep him safe. When Rei couldn't come to us anymore, I would need to come into the village for food and other supplies for our home. Sometimes I could leave Naruto with my ninkin. They could protect Naruto for an hour at that time. Naruto, being an infant, would be asleep when I made the errands into the village. But on those days where I knew that I would be longer, I would bring Naruto with me. But I would always henge both of us just before we would enter the village. But now that Naruto is almost 3 years old, he's becoming a lot more aware of his surroundings. And a lot more aware of what I'm doing. If I bring him into the village and do the henge, he will ask why I am doing this instead of just coming in as ourselves. And I don't think I can tell him the reasons. If I had that kind of courage, it would do me no good. Because I don't know how to even say it without it sounding as bad as it is. Kakashi's voice showed what the mask hid from the third. As Sarutobi listened to his ninja speak, he heard the sorrow and the regret that filled it. He could almost feel the pain that Kakashi held inside him just from his words. When Kakashi had finished speaking, the third sat still and closed his eyes, going into deep thought. Kakashi knew to stay patient and quiet. For whatever the old man was thinking, it would be an answer that Kakashi needed to hear. Several minutes had passed before the third's eyes opened again, and as Kakashi looked into them, he saw that they were filled with clarity and understanding. The words the Hokage spoke next shocked him. Kakashi, I want you to bring Naruto into the village. He raised a hand immediately when he saw Kakashi was about to verbally protest. Please, just hear this old man out. Kakashi nodded. Bring Naruto into the village. I will arrange for some people to come and meet with the two of you. Walk through the village with them. They shall be a wall unto you and Naruto. Take Naruto to the park that has the largest playground within the village. I will arrange for some ninja with children of their own to be there. That way Naruto may meet other children at or near his age. Then go to one of the restaurants for lunch. This way you don't have to tell Naruto about any of those things just yet. And at the same time, you will be able to grant Naruto's wish to see the village. He is still too young to be burdened with the knowledge of who and what he is. Neither should he know of what you have been through yet either. When you say some people, I trust I know of them, asked Kakashi warily. Yes, they're your peers, but unlike most of your peers, these youths are trustworthy to be around you too. Please, sir, tell me who they are. The third began speaking the names: Asuma, Kurenai, Guy, Anko, Genma, Raida, and even Ibiki. The names were rattled off without hesitation. Kakashi knew from this that the Hokage truly did trust his peers with him and Naruto. I Don. Listen Kakashi, you can't hide Naruto out in the woods forever. He is not a damsel in distress in a tower. If you keep him locked away it will only do the boy more harm than good. I understand what you are saying, sir. But I don't know if I can take that gamble. What if it goes wrong? What if they fail or are unwilling to help if the villagers go on a rampage after us? I've always been alone. I've always had to trust only myself when it came time for me to face the enemy or the villagers. I could never trust my team completely. None of the teams that I had been on. Except when I was on Team 7. Naruto is so important to me. I can't lose him because people decided that dealing with the villagers isn't worth it. Not when it's the traitor and the Jinchuriki that everyone is up in arms about. The third leaned back in his chair and reached for his pipe as he did so. Kakashi, these shinobi I mentioned are not like the rest of the shinobi in this village. When it comes to you, they have always had wanted to work with you. That sir really doesn't mean anything to me. A lot of people want to work with me. But only because they want to trip me up and watch me fall. So they can brag how the prodigy failed to complete the mission with honor. They would love to say that I am just like my father. They would love to say that I'm a traitor and a coward. Kakashi was starting to get angry. His fists were clenched at his sides, while his left eye showed his anger. Kakashi, you spoke of taking a gamble a few moments ago. What would you say if I told you that these people have been trying to get close to you for a long time now? Not as your adversaries but as your friends. They want to be your friends, Kakashi. They have watched the way the other shinobi and even this village has treated you. It boils their blood to see the wrongs that are done against you. I should know this, because I see them watching you. The expressions on their faces as they see others mistreat you. And if you would recall it to mind, you will find that they have stood up for you so many times. It's fear that holds you back, Kakashi. We both know this to be true. Let me ask you this, Kakashi. You trust me, don't you? Have I ever led you wrong with any of my decisions that affected you personally? Kakashi shook his head no. Have I led you astray when I brought Rei Sarahara into your lives? Again, Kakashi shook his head no. Then why can't you trust me now? Silence fell over the room for a few moments. The third could see the war that raged inside of his ninja. He sat patiently waiting for Kakashi to sort it all out and tell him what his answer would be. Kakashi stood with head now bowed. His fists were still clenched and his eye was closed. He wanted so badly to just give in and try reaching out to others again. He had been without any friends or any help for so long. This need had only intensified after the death of his mentor and accepting the responsibility of his little brother. Rei had been the closest thing to a friend Kakashi had for so long. But he couldn't keep her either. The difference was that at least she was still alive. He squeezed his eye tighter shut as he continued to struggle with his thoughts. I know that what the Hokage is telling me is the truth. But the risk is so high. I've never been able to hang on to any of the people that were precious to me. I had so few of them to begin with. But when I thought everything was lost, Sensei gave me his son, my brother, to me. And I realized that I had still one precious person left in this world. If anything happens to Naruto, I couldn't go on. There's just been so much death and loss. Still, I need help. I can't keep Naruto locked away from the world because I'm scared of losing him. The Hokage is right. It will only harm Naruto in the end. A deep sigh was heard exhaling from the young ninja in front of him. The third knew that the decision had been made. Now he waited for Kakashi to give his answer. Kakashi took another breath and looked up at the Hokage. Sir, I will accept your offer. You're right. I can't hide Naruto away from the world. Because I still live in the past. It isn't good for either of us. But especially for him. But I admit that I'm afraid to let him go out there in the world. I don't want him to be alone or hurt or scared. I've been all those things. I want something better for Naruto. The Hokage smiled a small sad smile. Then said, something better you will both have soon. I promise you. It had been decided that the gang would meet with Kakashi and Naruto in 4 days. It would allow for the preparations to be made and the other ninja who had agreed to meet them at the park with their children. The Hokage worked tirelessly at setting everything up. Although, he didn't do it all on his own. His son Asuma had helped as well. Asuma knew the owner of a pizza parlor in the village. There were only 3 such restaurants in Konoha. But this one Asuma went too often. sometimes to eat pizza, but other times he would stop by just to chat up the owner. A young man of 20 years of age. He had received an inheritance from a dead grandmother. He immediately knew what he wanted to do with most of the money. So he set up Shinji's Pizza, comfortable little establishment that housed several tables. 2 large brick ovens with plenty of room to work on the wonderful creations. Ceiling fans were spaced across the ceiling. Not only did they keep the place comfortable, but it also made the hungry customers practically drool as the delicious smell wafted throughout the place. Large glass windows spanned around from the front to the side of the building. Floor plants were placed in all the corners while hanging baskets hung from hooks driven into the support pillars that were also spaced throughout the building. Shinji had done well in creating a wonderful atmosphere for his customers. And Asuma knew this would be the perfect place to bring his soon-hoped-to-be friend and his little brother. The day came faster than Kakashi was ready for. He had told Naruto about the planned day as soon as he returned from talking with the Hokage. Naruto was excited at the news. Kakashi wished that he could feel the same. But he wasn't about to back out of this now. He remembered the conversation they shared. "Yo, little man, come here for a minute. I have something big to tell you." Naruto looked from the coloring book he was coloring in. "What is it, Kashi?" Curiosity burning in deep blue eyes. "Well, remember when I said that I had to talk with the Grandpa Hokage?" "Yes. Well, it turns out we were talking about you." Naruto got up from the floor and walked over to Kakashi, who was sitting at his desk. "About me? Why?" he asked. "You asked if you could go see the village, right?" Naruto nodded his head. "So, the Hokage is going to have some people arrange a day out for us." Kakashi wanted to say friends, but he wasn't sure how this whole thing would turn out. So he told Naruto, "Some people. You mean it? We can really go, Kashi?" Naruto was starting to get excited. "Yes, you bet, little man. In 4 days we will be going out on the town." "Wow, I always wanted to see where everyone else lived." "Hey, Kashi, did you used to live in the village?" Kakashi was struck silent for a moment. "Yeah, Naruto, I did once." "Why don't we live there then? Did I do something bad to get us kicked out?" Kakashi immediately reached for his little brother and hugged him. He couldn't answer Naruto's questions. This was beginning to feel like a theme to Kakashi. And he hated it with a passion. Even worse, he hated seeing that painful look on Naruto's face. It didn't belong on someone like him. Kakashi searched for something to say to put the smile back on his little brother's face. "Anything." "No, Naruto, you did nothing wrong. Grandpa just wanted to give us a nice home out here, so you would have plenty of room to run and play in. And you do like playing with the ninkin and running in the woods." Kakashi mentally crossed his fingers that what he just said would work. "Yep, I do like the ninkin. And the woods is so much fun too. But being able to play with other kids and visiting them in the village would be fun too." "Well, we are going to visit the village and meet new people." "Really?" "Yep, really, Naruto." At this, Naruto was jumping around and squealing like all little kids do when they get something they really wanted. Kakashi just watched and smiled at his little brother's antics. But it abruptly stopped and Kakashi saw Naruto now standing in front of him with one hand holding himself and the other rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. Kakashi raised an eyebrow and asked, "Naruto, do you have to pee?" Naruto's face turned a little red as he squirmed. "Yeah, I think I bounced too much, ha ha ha. No way can I back out of this now." If that wasn't a wake-up call of what Naruto's feeling, then I have no right to be called a genius. Kakashi thought as he got himself and Naruto ready to go. Naruto had finished eating his breakfast cereal. Sitting in his booster sit across from Kakashi, who was just finishing his breakfast as well. They had already showered, and since Naruto was a bit of a messy eater, Kakashi had Naruto wearing only his training pants, while he was fully dressed. It would save time this way and also keep the clothes Kakashi had set aside for Naruto clean until he was ready to wear them. Now that they were both done with their meals, Kakashi grabbed the bowls and headed for the sink. Washing them out quickly and setting them aside, he went back to get his little brother out of his booster seat. They went upstairs and straight to the bathroom to wash again, Naruto's face, chest and hands before going to get him dressed. They were making good time as Kakashi looked at the clock on Naruto's bedroom wall. It was only 8:45, plenty of time. Kakashi had packed a backpack for Naruto the night before. The pack was filled with the things Kakashi thought Naruto would need. Training pants, hand wipes, towel for his face and bottled water. Now grabbing the pack, The two went back downstairs and into the playroom. Naruto wasted no time to get out a few toys and sat and played while Kakashi sat at his desk reading a new report scroll he had received about one of the patrols. The report had spoken of an Anbu team led by Lion. Lion and his team were following up on Wolf team's lead of a used campsite. They were able to determine that Badger's team was indeed pursuing a group with malicious intent. The reason Lion's team was able to make this deduction was due to finding 5 other campsites that matched the one Wolf's team found. As he read the report, Kakashi's eyes began to widen as he read the next line. The 5th site was where Lion team encountered the enemy. At 1500 hours Lion's team was hunting near a waterfall. When Horse sensed a weak pulse of chakra coming from the pathway they were on but a good half-mile away. The team immediately went into pursuit. They approached their targets quietly and quickly. However, the leader sensed them and made a hasty retreat along with his followers. When Lion came to their camp, he could only make out a shape disappearing into some kind of vortex or void. An obvious jutsu was used to quicken the enemy's escape. Lion's team found that the camp was left as was. There were only a few items of importance left behind. One was a map that was being made of the woods around the Leaf Village. Specific landmarks like caves and waterfalls were highlighted on the map. There were also some binoculars left as well. In conclusion, it is likely that these people are a scouting party. A party that has encountered Anbu in the past 4 times and was finally found out on the 5th infiltration of the territory of the Leaf. They may very well return. Requested action is to beef up patrols in that area as well as sending summons to help search the rest of the woods surrounding the Leaf. Kakashi placed the scroll back down on his desk. His gut was telling him that whoever it was that was playing hide and seek in the woods with the Anbu is the same person responsible for the Kyuubi attack. No matter how hard he tried to think otherwise. Kakashi's gut feeling hung on like a determined pit bull. He broke from his thoughts when he felt a hand on his arm. Looking down, Kakashi found Naruto looking at him with a worried expression. "Kashi, is something wrong? I tried to call to you 3 times but you didn't answer." Kakashi reached over and lifted Naruto into his lap. "Sorry, little man, I got lost in my thoughts. What did you need?" I think it's time to go?" Kakashi looked at the clock on his desk and mentally cursed himself. It was 9:45. They would have to shun Shin to get to the outskirts in time. "Sorry, Naruto, but I've made us a bit late. I need you to go down the hall and use the bathroom before we leave." "Okay, but I don't have to pee now." "Try to anyway, okay? Do it for your big brother." "Okay," sighed Naruto. Kakashi placed Naruto down and the chibi headed for the bathroom. It turned out Big Brother knew what he was talking about. Soon Naruto came back down the hall yelling for Kakashi. His training pants half up his legs while his pants were still around his ankles. "Kashi, help me, please." "Here I come, little man." Kakashi stopped mid-stride. When he got a look at his brother. "Whoa, got brief problems chuckled Kakashi as he quickly walked up to Naruto. "They don't want to come up. My butt is getting cold already." A frustrated Naruto replied. "Hold on, they're twisted a little." Again Kakashi couldn't help but laugh. He got his brother's clothes situated on him properly. Then they went back down to the bathroom to wash Naruto's hands. Once done they went and grabbed what they would need for the trip out. For Kakashi, it was the backpack. For Naruto, it was his plushy fox. They made it outside and Kakashi locked the door and off they went. They teleported to the outskirts and found the gang was all there. Kakashi walked up to them slowly holding Naruto's hand. Naruto had a tight grip on his plushie and small smile on his face. The group watched them approach. Some of them smiled at them while others were giving them nods of approval. But it was Guy who actually broke the silence and the ice in one fell swoop. He quickly stood in front of the rest of his group and while striking a good guy pose. "Welcome, my eternal rival." Guy flashed his grand megawatt smile and nearly blinded the two looking at him. "Are you ready to have some much overdue youthful fun?" "Guy, could you please turn it down a bit? You're scaring them, and we haven't even gotten into the village yet," replied Anko sarcastically. "Yeah, Guy, you're ruining our attempt at a first good impression," whined Genma. "It's already much too late for that," said Asuma thoughtfully. Kurenai, who was standing next to Asuma, let out a giggle at that. Guy turned back to his group unflappable and with even more vigor said, "My esteemed colleagues, we shouldn't try to bury the youthful passion that flows in all of us. We should let it out and express it while we are young. Well, I for one have heard enough rambling about youth. Let's get this show started before Kakashi and Naruto decides that it isn't a good idea to come into the village after all. Replied Ibiki. I think the show has already started, Ibiki. But yeah, let's go already. Raida says as he watches Kakashi shrugging his shoulders at a confused Naruto. The entourage makes its way through the village with ease. The villagers looked at the group but said nothing. Some went on about their business. A few, however, couldn't resist giving glares. The glares were aimed at Kakashi and Naruto. But because of the two walking with the others, those glares had little effect. Everyone in the group felt and saw the glares that were aimed their way. And Kakashi was acutely aware of them at all times. He kept his guard up and kept Naruto close as they walked. For his part, Naruto noticed the ill looks they were receiving. He didn't understand why so many people were looking at them that way. But he was a child, so attention never stayed on them for long. Look Kashi, look, shouted Naruto as he pointed. It's the Hokage faces. And there's Grandpa too. I see, Naruto. Maybe we can go up there sometime. You can see the whole village from up there. We can stand on top of their heads? Naruto asked with a curious look. Anko turned around and answered. Yep, you sure can. Wow, can we go up there now? Sorry, little man, but we have some more people we need to meet at a very different special place. We'll go to the Hokage faces another time. An apologetic, Kakashi replied. A special place? Yes, Naruto, it's a place I think you will like. Kurenai spoke up for the first time. Genma was walking along the left side of Kakashi. His senbon moving periodically at the corner of his mouth. Hey, does it feel like we forgot to do something before we started walking through the village? No, I can't think of anything out of the ordinary, my youthful friend. Replied Guy who was walking in front of Kakashi. We didn't introduce ourselves. A pensive Ibiki said. Oh. Sorry about that Kakashi, and you too, Naruto. I'm Genma. The one standing tall beside you Naruto, is Ibiki. Ibiki nodded to the little guy. Genma continued. In front of you is Anko. Watch out for that one. She plays with snakes. Genma had to duck suddenly as Anko swung half-heartedly at him. Don't mind him kid, I'm not that bad. Continuing the introductions, Genma pointed over at the man with the thick scars on his face. That man behind you is none other than Raida. Raida smiled at Naruto, who had turned around to see the man. The beautiful woman walking with the handsome guy beside her is Kurenai and her boyfriend Asuma. Hey, we're not boyfriend and girlfriend yet. An embarrassed Asuma chided. Genma looked nonplussed about it. Oh, and last but not least is Guy. No introduction is really needed for him, really. Anko laughed and went and hit Guy on the arm lightly. Guy responded with a good-natured chuckle. They made it through the main part of town and turned off to the right for what would be considered a block. There, nestled back in off the main road, stood the largest park of the Leaf Village. As soon as Naruto's eyes saw the park his excitement grew. He had never been to a park before and this one had so much to do in it. There were swing sets at least 6 in the immediate surroundings. There were also several sliding boards and sets of monkey bars. The park even boasted a huge sandbox. Several drinking fountains were scattered around the park as well. Many walking trails snaked off into the wooded area behind the clearing. The best part was that there were some children there and they were about his age. He wanted to just take off and meet them. But he also saw adults there as well and became shy. Kakashi took him on into the park. A woman in a long light blue dress saw them and walked up to meet them. She greeted them and soon Naruto was let loose to play with the other children. He ran happily after them. Kakashi went and sat down with the other ninja on a long park bench. They talked and joked as the children played, but all the while keeping sharp eyes on Kakashi's little brother. Kakashi was shocked to see his fellow ninja keeping one eye on him and their conversation and the other on his little brother. Kakashi remembered what Minato had told him before his death. When people offer friendship, don't immediately turn it down. He knew Anko. She was a member of his Anbu team. He also knew Ibiki, because he likewise was a member of his team. Guy, he knew because he could never escape the green-clad warrior. From the time that Guy watched Kakashi fight and win in a match. He has doggedly pursued challenges with the silver-haired nin, but none of them he knew well. He didn't know where they lived or what their favorite foods were or anything even trivia like that about them. The others he only knew their names and faces, but that was it. But one thing was certain to him. They were genuine. Kakashi had watched them while they all walked together through the village. Their faces showed that they wouldn't take any crap from the villagers. They almost looked like they were waiting for a fight. The Hokage hadn't lied to him this time either. Deep in his gut, Kakashi knew they were trustworthy. And a ninja lives by his gut instincts. It's what keeps him and his comrades alive. Soon afternoon came and Naruto came back to Kakashi when the others started to leave. Their mothers and fathers were calling them to come to them to go have lunch. Naruto's own stomach was rumbling. So with haste he ran back to his big brother. Kakashi knelt down and with a towel pulled from his backpack and wiped his little brother's face. "Are you ready to have lunch now?" Kakashi asked. "Yeah, my tummy is talking to me." As if to confirm what Naruto just said. His stomach rumbled again. Anko laughed and said, "Your stomach speaks my language, kid." "Alright then, let's go eat. I have the place booked for us," replied Asuma. "I think you're going to like it." Everyone gathered together and off they went heading to Shinji's Pizza. As they arrived they could already smell the delicious aromas that were carried out the door by a satisfied customer on his way home. Asuma grabbed the door and everyone piled inside. Naruto again stood wide-eyed. He had never been in a restaurant before and the place smelled so nice. The owner saw the group and came over to greet them. "Hello, everyone. My name is Shinji Hondo." "Asuma, I'm glad you brought everyone." "Yeah, I've been wanting to bring everyone. But this is the first time we all had off at the same time." "Well, glad you all could make it. If you follow me I will escort you to your table now." Everyone followed Shinji to their reserved table. Place settings were already on the table. The table was large enough for everyone to sit comfortably. Naruto was placed in the middle on the side facing out towards the door. Kakashi sat next to his left, while Anko sat to Naruto's right. Then Guy sat on the end by Anko while Ibiki sat next to Kakashi on the end. Asuma sat across from him. Then it was Kurenai, Genma and Raida. Once everyone was seated, their server came with menus and asked what everyone wanted to drink. Once the drinks were ordered the server left to get them while the group pondered over what they would eat. Several trays of pizza and lots of talk and laughter later everyone was finally full and it was time to go home. Naruto was taken to the bathroom. Then they all left, heading back down the street. Again many villagers ignored the entourage as it proceeded down the street. But there were still others who again glared intently at them. One man made a move towards Naruto but Ibiki had the man pinned up against a wall so fast. The man didn't even know how it happened. He was threatened and released. Ibiki rejoined the group and they continued as if nothing happened. When they got to the edge of the village, everyone said their goodbyes. Kakashi and Naruto left first. Kakashi had picked Naruto up and was running through the trees. Asuma and the others then disappeared as well. They didn't go far. They went and hid behind some dumpsters or in alleyways and waited. The wait wasn't long. A group of villagers appeared and were making as if they would go after Kakashi and Naruto. Instead they were intercepted by Asuma's group and were quickly taught a lesson in civility. Kakashi carried Naruto into the house. Naruto was fighting sleep. He had a big day. Now it was late afternoon and he was sleepy. But he didn't want to go to sleep, not just yet. He had something he wanted to say to his big wonderful brother. And Naruto wasn't going to sleep until he got to say it. Kakashi walked up the stairs with his little brother watching a bit amused as Naruto fought hard not to go to sleep. "Hey, little man, maybe you should give up the fight and get some sleep, I'll still be here when you wake up." "Kashi? Yeah? I love you. And thank you for taking me out today. I had a good time with everyone." Kakashi stopped for a moment halfway down the hall to Naruto's bedroom. He stared down at his little brother. The warmth in his heart grew. He had done the right thing after all. Kakashi reached up to pull the mask down. He wanted his little brother to see the smile that was there. "You're welcome, little man. I love you too."
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.